Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for a stream that should have taken place nearly 2 weeks ago. I'm well aware, so everybody does tune in today, whether that's live or later on once this has turned into a video. I appreciate you very much, but the OCD within me did not allow me to not do the stream, and I was like, today's the last day I can do it. We just streamed news yesterday, so nothing big today. So now is the time, now is the one and only time we can still get this over and done with, because as much as it was an awful season, I don't really want to think about it that much anymore. I think it will do us all well to kind of finalize it, put it to bed, put it behind us, and kind of be done with it, be done with it, and hopefully look ahead to a better season. Although with how this transfer window is going so far, I'm not really sure how that's going to go. But, that is a topic that we'll maybe discuss at the end of this, but we'll just have to wait and see in terms of how long we'll actually take to get through all of the player ratings. I am joined by two wonderful guests once again. Aaron, I'll start with you. It's been a hot minute since you were last on, I feel like. So thank you for coming back on. Appreciate it very much. You're going to be in agreement with me. It was an awful, awful season. And there's not going to be many players that get into the higher tiers of ratings here. Ladies and gentlemen, I should have probably explained. We're not doing player ratings like we usually do post-game from 0 to 10 with 0.5 increments. We're going to do it as a tier list. First of all, I think a bit more visually appealing for you guys watching, but also, I don't know, it makes it a bit more of a conversation point if you have a disagreement, because sometimes someone says 6.5 and someone says 6, and then you're like discussing for 10 minutes, and then there's really no point because essentially we say the same thing. So, let's hope we have a few disagreements. We might agree on many. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Shout out Ricky, by the way. Like Ricky says, if you haven't already, smash that like button and subscribe. That would be massively appreciated. Why is Pulisic leaving? Because he never plays and wants to better his own career, mainly. That's all I can say. But yeah, Aaron, it's not been a fun season. There's not going to be many in those higher tiers. But now that it's a few weeks in the past, I suppose, how do you sit here and view this past season? Like, do you just sit here as the worst thing that has ever happened? Or is it, and I keep going back to this, and I've said this a few times over the last few months, that I still, as much as it doesn't explain quite how bad it went, obviously, but I still think all of us kind of underestimated, first of all, when the sanctions were placed on Roman in the first place, but then also when the whole takeover process was happening, how much this would affect us, really. I think all of us underestimated that a little bit, if I'm honest. Do you think so? Or do you just think everyone has underperformed and it doesn't really have that much to do with the takeover itself?
I appreciate you having me again, bro. No, best season of my life, honestly. I don't know what you're talking about. It's filled me with joy. It has. It's been a shit show to say the least. It's been horrific, but I think we all did underestimate just how difficult a transition was going to be from going ownership to ownership. So I think in essence, it kind of was something that wasn't fully to be anticipated, because it's not like we've been through it in the sort of modern times before, and it was like a harsh awakening. But we've gone through that first year now. I feel like they've learned what works, what doesn't work, where they've made mistakes, what they can do better. So it's up to them now really to try and amend those and make the changes. But all in all, it was not pleasant to say the least. And I feel like this is one season that I would love to just put in the back of my mind and hope that we can push on from here. But I do think it may take us another season or two to fully get back to the levels where we have been previously.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think as much as I can still see a way and a reality in which we finish top 4 next season, I personally think people saying that has to be the expectation. I think they've kind of just ignored how bad this season was. If you think that, like, sure, that some things will automatically be better, a different vibe, different manager. I understand that, new signings, some players going. But you don't just go from 12th to top 4 just because. Like that, that's not how it goes. It's not that simple. And I know we did that after the 2016 season. But that's another thing I wanted to touch on. Like back then, and until January time or whatever, it wasn't really, or maybe February even, it wasn't even that different from that season. But the problem was the kind of stability, the stabling it out towards the end of the season, that never came. Because, Potter was maybe a little bit with those, when we had 3 wins in a row, but that was kind of, we were on the verge of that. But then Potter draws against Everton, loses against Villa. He gets sacked. Lampard comes in and makes everything way worse. So, unfortunately, we ended up finishing 12th, lowest ever points finish. Not the lowest ever positional finish, because that was 14th in whatever season that was. But in terms of points, we've never finished a Premier League campaign lower. So, it's very depressing, really, when you think about it too much. Which is why we're going to focus on individuals today rather than the grand scheme of things.
Lawrence, you were saying top 4 next season. Is it not the top 5 that get Champions League from the year after? So
it's a good point, actually. 5. I think so. I think you might be right,
Because we've got 8 English teams in Europe next season, so I think we get the extra Champions League slot. One of the 2 that get the extra slot.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's a good point. It's very true. I need to start remembering that as well.
So we can finish 5th and still get Champions League.
Obviously 5th is easier than 4th, but I also wouldn't sit here and say 5th is a guarantee.
That's fair enough.
I would put it like that. But no, you make a good point. Very good point. Adash, thank you for coming on as well. I appreciate it very, very much. Similar question as I just posed to Aaron. How do you sit here now in hindsight, in reflection? Not in reflection. How do you reflect on this past season? Because my God, there's not been a lot of positives. I mean, you can literally rattle off on less than a hand how many good games we had. And that is just, like, we're Chelsea Football Club still. Like, this is crazy. Less than a handful of actually good games. Mental.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me back on. I think, the fact that people are saying we're getting top 4, I think not only are they ignoring the result of, like, this season, but also, like, we deserve to be 12th. It's not like we had like results go against us and it was like, well, we should have been like top 8, but then, just things didn't fall our way. It was like a tight kind of run at the table. But like we deserve to finish 12th or like arguably even lower. Some of our performances were worse than the teams that finished below us. But I think, to take a more positive spin, I guess it can only go up from here. The people who didn't have experience when they were making the decisions are either out or they have kind of gained more experience and they've hopefully learned from their mistakes. I don't think I truly hope to God it's not this bad next season. I think it's going to be somewhere around the middle. I don't think it depends, I guess, on what happens in the next couple of months and how the trajectory of our club is looking. But yeah. I think it's going to be more positive in general than it was last season. If for nothing else, then there's a little bit more stability. All the players who had to sit in a separate dressing room or had to sit in a separate room, they can kind of sit together. They've gelled a little bit more as a squad. And then I think that should have kind of more of a positive outlook for the future.
There you go. No, I don't disagree. You know what, guys? Actually, I was going to say we're going to do it at the very, very end of, being done with kind of the season ratings. Let's quickly just get the news out of the way, shall we? There's not a lot, just a few small bits and bobs. And I'll just get a Pice's Twitter quickly and talk about it. What he just put out 9 minutes ago. Real Madrid want to sign Havertz for £42 million, which I suppose if 60 million euros is 52 million pounds, that's around 50 million euros. However, Chelsea are asking for 52 million pounds plus bonus payments. A tough poker. Havertz has other options, but he wants Real Madrid. Well, bloody obviously he does. Who wouldn't want to go Real Madrid if there's an option? Matt Law said Chelsea apparently even value Havertz at 70 million. So that's a weird kind of contradiction of numbers. We already had someone else talk about, I think it was Jacob Steinberg yesterday was talking about that we want around 70, 75 million. Now the German reports are talking still with this 52. The English ones keep talking about 70. Not sure where they've come from with that. Loftus-Cheek, obviously his move to AC Milan is for the moment on hold. No one really knows what's happening after Maldini and the other guys at AC Milan have been sacked. And apparently there was a meeting supposed to happen and that was then cancelled. So, yeah. And yeah, we want to sign Caicedo. That's not exactly news. And apparently we face competition from Real Madrid for Lautaro Martinez, who Poch likes, but I haven't actually genuinely seen us linked with. So I don't really know what we're making with that one, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Tom Roddy went on in more detail saying Chelsea anticipating significant transfer business this summer with many outgoings and additions of between 3 and 6 players. Depending on outgoings, we will need 3 to 6 players. I think that is fairly reasonable. Shout out Pice for the retweet, by the way. He's not even on this stream. But yeah, just quickly, Aaron, what do you think of this situation that, first of all, the different kind of demand prices or demand numbers that media from Spain, media from Germany compared to media from England is talking about. But also, I understand that they want him for cheaper, but I personally don't think, and I know people don't rate Havertz, and as much as I like him more, I still don't rate him very highly for us. I still don't think 52 million pounds is an outrageous thing to ask. Like, we have to remember what the market is nowadays. Like, Anthony Gordon went for 45 million pounds. Like, we have to keep things like that in mind before we say, why are we outpriced? No, Madrid just need to stop being pussy hoes and like, come on now, 52 million ain't that bad. Or do you disagree with that, Aaron?
I mean, Madrid have just spunked 100 and whatever million on Jude Bellingham, so they're not short of a pretty penny. But I do think that it's difficult to kind of gauge what kind of fee it's going to be because there's so many different reports coming from England and Spain. So it's hard to really know for certain what the discussed fees are, what we want, what they're willing to offer, etc. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it develops. But I don't think we're in a position where somebody like Havertz, who's one of the more expensive assets, whether everyone can have their debates on him as a player and his performances, etc. But in terms of being one of the more valuable assets in the squad, I don't think we should put ourselves in a position where we're gonna, basically kind of short ourselves on the price that we want for him in order just to get rid of him. I think when we're looking at valuations of certain players who aren't in like the last year of their contracts and actually have some sort of sell-on value, I think we shouldn't be in a position where we're pressured to lower that just for the sake of other clubs wanting to buy them. So it's different to the whole Mason Mount thing because he's got a year and the valuations there are stupid. But with Havertz having a bit more time on his contract and not being one who we're trying to like openly push, but would be open and wouldn't mind, then I think it's the case where you should look to sort of get the utmost fee that you value him at or closest to it. So I don't think going down to Madrid's value is a clever idea.
No, exactly. Especially what we have to consider in terms of these asking for certain numbers. Being this early in the window, you like if you realize, oh shit, we want to sell Havertz and we're not managing to get rid of him. Now, obviously, Madrid might sign other players instead, but they have plenty of other things to sort out. They need a new striker. They've just got Jude Bellingham over the line. Like they have other things to sort out than just getting Havertz. Obviously, they've got Brahim Diaz coming back from his loan as well. If you really can't find anybody else that is even paying close to the 52 million that we want, you can still go to Madrid later in the window and say 42, 45, what you're saying. Like, that doesn't all need to happen in June. Now, I am aware for financial fair play, certain things need to happen before June 30th, but as David Ornstein yesterday also confirmed that the financial fair play situation isn't quite as dire as some people have tried to make it out to be in the last few months. I personally have stated that for weeks and weeks on end, that don't be as scared as the media are trying to scare you. It's not that serious. Sure, we need to sell some players, but it's like it will be 2 or 3 or 4 players that we need, depending on which ones it is, and we'll be absolutely fine. Like it's not a case of that we need to sell 10 plus players to be fine in terms of financial fair play. That's not what the situation is. Adash, similar question. Where do you sit on this? Like, do you think we're just outpricing Havertz? Do you think like Real Madrid? But because one other thing that people I feel like are forgetting, yes, people are, but not just. Like other clubs are aware that we're having to sell players and want to sell players. So their first offers, their initial willingness of what they want to pay might not necessarily be what they're actually willing to pay. Like we are like our ownership are noobs and new to this. So like they might just try to get their players gone for cheaper. We also set the example of Lukaku last year where we're like, if we want to get rid of a player, we'll basically don't really care about the money situation of the money side of things. So like we set the example of that we can be mugged off like that. So I also think to some extent it's also important that we don't just accept every shit offer that comes our way personally. But Adash, how do you see that one?
Yeah, I think it swings kind of like both ways in terms of like you kind of want this clear out and you are willing to take a cut because after you make that initial kind of like sale and like wholesale kind of like adjustment of the squad, then after that you can afford to be a little bit more picky once like all the directors and the manager are kind of in unison about the whole squad. Then it's easier to kind of make decisions and then say, okay, we're willing to let this player go, but on our terms. Whereas kind of like when you're starting with a pre-existing squad, you might just want to like start fresh and then take that cut, which is kind of where I stand in terms of, I think 52 million plus bonus might be a little bit too much. And also the other thing I would say is that given Havertz's trajectory, if we know that we want 52 million from him and he doesn't perform next season, then if we wish to sell him in the following summer, then surely they can't demand the same amount because we are also, a lot of this transfer fee that we're asking for is based on future value that he still has to sell on value. So each season that he doesn't perform or each game that he doesn't perform, his value will slowly be reducing for us. But I mean, on the other hand, I can't see.
But obviously, there are certain limits to that. Like there are certain limits to what the valuation should and can go down to. Especially Real Madrid being interested in the first place already raises his value again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, definitely out of some of the other transfer fees being floated, I think this is among the more reasonable ones and some of the more kind of like achievable ones, I would say. And maybe like just if we're a little bit more flexible in terms of like maybe a little bit less than 52, but having more add-ons, because we know with like Hazard and stuff, that was a large portion of the transfer fee that we later got. And then we know with Madrid that could be easily achievable at any time. That might be a way to go about it. But I mean, I think there's bigger priorities for us, and there's also bigger priorities for Real kind of on both teams as kind of the to-do list.
I do agree with that. JC, shout out the water bottle. I do remember, absolutely. That was good times. And also, Joe, welcome to the channel. Appreciate you. If anybody knows Joe Neil-Saka, the real proper OG of Chelsea YouTube, we're trying to make something happen in terms of content, me on his channel, him on coming on the stream next week. So we're trying to sort that one out. He says, what about signing a striker like Mitrovic and then use Broja as well when he comes back? I think Broja will most certainly be used. Because I don't see us signing 3 strikers this summer. So Broja will most certainly get his time, I think, depending on obviously how he comes back from his injury. But he should be here from the start of preseason, so that's a good sign. Mitrovic, I wouldn't be totally against it. I'd probably prefer Mitrovic to many others. The problem is, I think a lot of people underestimate, because of where Fulham are right now, how much Mitrovic would cost. Obviously, he's not the youngest anymore either. But Fulham would still charge quite a decent penny for him, I think. So that's my only kind of negative point where I'm like, yeah, but for how old he is, for what level he actually is at, even though he's a very good striker when you use him the right way, I'm not sure. But it all depends on how much Fulham would ask, and I guess what the other options are saying. Like, if we can make Osimhen happen, I'd rather Osimhen than Mitrovic. But if that's not possible, and then we're talking your Lautaros and Vlahovic's, for Serbia, Mitrovic starts over Vlahovic. So, sure, age comes into it, but that's the problem, Joe, isn't it? Our ownership doesn't want to buy old players. So as much as we might agree with it, the ownership ain't doing that, let's be honest. But yeah, another small bit of news that came out earlier. I mean, was it Aaron or was it Adash? I didn't actually see who sent in a private chat. It was Adash. In terms of expecting Gallagher to leave this summer, that might be happening. But also, and I wanted to bring that up because you reminded me of it, apparently apparently Chelsea won £50 million. Newcastle value him at less than half than that. But Newcastle are clowns then, because literally Everton bid £45 million. So you can't obviously have him for £25 million. Are you idiots? Like, what is that? I'm sorry. Then he's clearly not going to Newcastle. But to bring up another report from Football London, even though I don't know Scott Trotter, so I can't really say how reliable he is, there's an expectation that Conor Gallagher will depart Chelsea. The summer Newcastle and West Ham are among the clubs interested. I mean, people know I think we need to sell him. But if the only thing we're getting for him is 25 mil, then I'm not sure if we should actually sell him or not. But yeah, that is, I guess, a different topic for a different day. But let's now get into what we're actually here to talk about today. The Chelsea season ratings for both manager and players. As you can see, we have all 4 managers that took charge of Premier League games or any games this season down here, as well as obviously all the first team squad. And this time, unlike last time, we don't have two Ben Chilwells. We have Lewis Hall and Ben Chilwell. I'm not necessarily sure what we're going to do with the order. The goalies at the beginning, the managers at the end. In between that, it's all over the place. But this is what we're going for. I've decided to split it into 6 categories, into 6 tiers, going from our only saviours, had a decent season, had a solid season, was subpar, was poor, and was just absolutely shocking. Obviously, I hope you guys are going to be somewhat in agreement with the categories, I suppose, but I think we should do quite well. Not sure if we should start with the goalkeepers. You know what? Let's not start with the goalkeepers. Let's start somewhere random in the middle, shall we? Let's start with... Shall we start with Dennis Zakaria, boys? Just why not? Start with Dennis Zakaria. Aaron, I'll start with you. Where would you put Dennis Zakaria? Obviously, only a 1-year loan, which is not getting extended. He will not be here next season, or made into a permanent transfer. He's barely got any game time. But what I will give him is that little period around January, February, when he did get a bit of game time before he picked up an injury and then never saw the light of day again once Frank was here. He was actually pretty good in that period. And so it's kind of difficult because obviously he never played. But when he did play, I thought he was always at least average. So I don't really know where to place him, Aaron. But what would you do with Zakaria?
I think this is one of the more difficult ones because he didn't really play too much. It's kind of hard to give a proper judgment. I think for me, because we saw games where he was quite good. I remember being at Stamford Bridge when he made his debut and he scored in the Champions League. So he's had his good moments, but equally so, he's had performances where he hasn't been great either. So I think when you weigh up he's had some good, had some bad. I think it's more of like a subpar sort of season. And some of it isn't any fault of his own because he just wasn't really given much time by managers to really get on the pitch and make an impact. And if you're not given much game time, it's difficult to build up your rhythm and get some form into you. So I do feel sorry for him. But for me, I think I'd go subpar.
Yeah, I'm definitely also thinking between solid and subpar purely because of the lack of game time. The thing is, if I actually judge his performances, I think you could even put him in decent. I know, obviously, it's very clear that there is a lot more negative tiers here than there are positives, purely because there was a lot more players that were poor, and I'd rather than all having 10 players in the end in one tier, I prefer to split the negative ones up a bit more and have the higher ups be a bit more condensed because there's going to be less. In terms of his performances, I could even put him in decent. So I might have gone solid, but let's see what Adash says to see where we end up at the very end. Adash, what do you think of Zakaria? Like, do you agree with Aaron subpar due to the lack of minutes, or would you still go a little bit higher than that? Because when he did play, he was all right.
Yeah, I think it's a little tough. I'm debating between subpar and solid. I'll probably give him solid because I don't know that it was all his fault that he got dropped. I think he should have had more minutes, and I think in general, not a bad loan, especially from our midfielder loan last season. Definitely a huge improvement. The game against Man City, I remember in particular, he played very well. I mean, in general, showed a lot of kind of versatility, and he wasn't. I don't remember him having any like proper stinkers per se. So I think I mean, he's obviously not coming back, but it wasn't the worst loan in the world.
All right. Sorry, so Aaron just said in the chat here, and maybe we can decide on this in a private chat here. He said, shouldn't solid and decent be swapped? Solid indicates better than decent to me. So to me, it wouldn't. But I guess then we change solid to average, and then is decent better than average, Aaron? Would you agree?
Yeah, so if you're going to... the reason I said solid and decent the other way, because decent's a bit like, meh, you were like, all right. But solid means that actually, you know what, you weren't half bad at all. Like, you were sort of like, do you know what I mean? But average,
I hear what you're saying. I would have done it the other way around, but that's fair. So let's change the solid then. But is average fine to you then in this order?
Yeah, average works. All
right, fair play. Unfortunately for you, Aaron, I'm not sure if the word average now changes your mind on it, but because I will also go for this category, like Adash did, it's going to be this one. Or would this have changed? The change of name now, would this have changed where you put him anyway?
No, I think it still keeps it the same because he was average. Like, you had some good, some bad. It wasn't really like, oh, you were better than you were worse. I think you had good games, you had bad games.
No, I know, but you put him in subpar, didn't you? That's why.
Oh yeah. If you that probably bumps it up to average then. Yeah.
Okay, fair dues. Very good. Shall we do the goalies? We'll start with Mendy. I put him in shocking. He had the most goal mistakes leading to goals from any goalkeeper in the Premier League this season, and he barely played. So that's not very good, is it? I mean, he had that stinker where he had Leeds under Thomas Tuchel. Then he basically never played again, comes back in, and the Lampard has another stinker. So as much as it's a bit harsh because he didn't play that much, pretty much every time he played, he was awful. So what else can I do? Because if we're being nice to Mendy now, who else goes in shocking? Other than Cucurella. If Mendy doesn't go in shocking, who goes in shocking? Do you know what I mean? So with that in mind, in my opinion, Mendy has to go in shocking. Adash, I'll let you go first on this one. Am I too harsh, or would you agree?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, I was clamoring at the end of the season for Mendy to get more game time, but it was basically the opposite of Zakaria, where Zakaria had limited playing time, but every time he played, he kind of showed something and had something to offer. Whereas for Mendy, it seemed like every time he came into the starting lineup, it was just something or the other went wrong. And obviously, I mean, had an injury and stuff, but I don't think that's a mitigating factor enough. That was, first of all, his performances after the injury, but his performances pre-injury to get dropped in the first place were not very good. So, yeah, I would definitely agree with shocking.
There you go. I know, Aaron, you probably still prefer Mendy to Kepa, but on the basis of purely this season, would you still agree that he has to go in shocking?
Yeah, he's just had way too many howlers this season for my liking, and I think for me it got to a point where it was kind of like Kepa was starting to really annoy me as well. So at a point it was just like, okay, well, if Kepa's starting to really piss me off, then what difference does it make whether it's Kepa or Mendy? Might as well just switch it up and see what happens. But we switched it up for, I think it was Nottingham Forest, and then he had a howler on his first game, and I thought, yeah, this is either way, they're both relatively shit, so it doesn't help. But yeah, I would put him in shocking.
Fair enough. Let's just get the other goalie out of the way. See, I would put Kepa in one of our only saviors. I know people don't agree with this, but I would. And this doesn't mean that he was amazing, and this doesn't mean that I think he should stay and remain our number one goalkeeper. But when I compare it to all the other players and how that he's, even though he tailed off a little bit towards the end of the season, still, I'm not sure where exactly he ranks, but still one of the highest save percentages of the whole league. I think he should be at least indecent, in my opinion, because, yeah, there was a couple of games where he should have done better and could have saved us some more points. But you can say that about Edison. You can say that about Alisson. You can say that about Ramsdale. You can say that about De Gea won the Golden Glove, and he definitely cost United more games and points than Kepa did for us. Like, do you know what I mean? So I will put him there. It's okay if you guys don't. That's absolutely fine, and we will put him low, of course. But I thought I'd go first, give him the little bit of prep that I have to give him before people have too much of a go at me. But Aaron, how much lower would you go?
Yeah, I did not expect him to go in the top one. That is horrific.
Again, I do want to reiterate. It's not because I think he was that great, but because I think the squad on average has been so bad that he makes this tier, if that makes sense.
Knowing you, the only two that are going to join him are Ruben and Havertz, to be fair. So I'm waiting for that. But for Kepa, I think I'd go average. And I say that because I'm not his biggest fan at all. I feel like sometimes he flaps his arms like a T-Rex. He's a bit short for a keeper, so bless him. It's not his fault. He can't really reach very far when he's in the goal. And anyone with the ability to take a long shot, he's pretty much game over from there. But yeah, I think I'd go average. And I say that because although he did have like a good save percentage, I think that only takes you so far. And
he also had the save of the season, I shall remind you.
Yeah, he could. Yeah, good award. He could put that on his mantelpiece at home, but I don't give a shit about that because
no one else got an award at Chelsea this season. To be fair,
yeah, that's because no one fucking deserved one, did they? They're all shit.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's why Kepa is going in own savior.
We're gonna stick him on the market and tell all the different clubs that he got the save of the season.
Exactly. So Kepa did the perfect season to get himself sold. But the problem is he's the one that's going to end up staying, isn't he? But
unfortunately. But yeah, I say average because don't get me wrong, there was times where he did pull off some great saves and he did have some good performances, but I do think that there were points in the season. It's been a long season. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I do remember being annoyed at Kepa a lot and thinking that he should have done better in certain things. And yeah, he's done well to come back from the position that he was in before, but he is not good enough to be a Chelsea number one goalkeeper. And unfortunately, he's been put in that position this season because of how Mendy's been. But yeah, I think it's safe to say it's a failed experiment, and I think it's time to either hit the bench or go. And I'm leaning more towards go because of his salary.
Yeah, I mean, I agree as well that in an ideal world he would go. The problem is all the goalkeepers were linked to either Michael and I don't think are really any better. But yeah, with my only saviour, your average so far, Kepa sits in decent. Adash, where would you put him?
Again, kind of debating between average and decent because I don't think he like explicitly cost us anything, but I just don't think he is like kind of the goalkeeper who'll elevate you to the next level. Also, I mean, it was he kind of had his hands tied in terms of like at some points like our midfield was non-existent. At some point, our defense made mistakes and stuff. So it's definitely not all to blame for him. And I mean, I don't think people who say like he was shocking or really poor just kind of have an agenda. You have to understand what kind of skills the player has, and then based on that is what you're grading them as to whether or not they're fulfilling their true ability. I think he's done that to a pretty average level, so I'll probably go there. But I mean, I think you could certainly do a lot worse even as a number one goalkeeper, let alone as a number two. But I think he's probably going to end up staying, like you said.
Yeah, that's the problem. If his wages weren't as high, I think he would kind of be the perfect backup goalie because he's clearly settled at the club now. He's a bit of a leader now, not a John Terry type leader, not by any means, but he's a vocal guy that helps others out. It's just his wages that are the problem. But yeah, so even with you going average, obviously being in the middle, 1 too higher and 2 too lower, I guess we'll still leave it in the middle in the end. I guess that's how we should go about this, how we usually do it for normal ratings as well. I guess when it's super indecisive and one of you is absolutely not having it whatsoever, we can still give the chat a poll. Shall we just move along the order now? Might as well. Lewis Hall. Also a bit tricky because it's in comparison to others, obviously he hasn't played a lot. But when he did get his chance, I think other than Liverpool away, when he played in midfield, he was one of our 1 or 2 best players every single time he was on the pitch. And I know he didn't play that much, and calling him our saviour is maybe a bit much, but that's just the top tier now. I think on the basis of his performances, he deserves to be in the top tier. Because, like I say, other than Liverpool away, every time he played, to me, he was our best or second best player. So for me, he has to go in the top tier, but I understand if other people see it differently. Adash, do you see it the same as me, or would you purely because it's not quite enough game time put him lower than this?
Completely agree. Only savior is what I was going to go with. I think, if you look at, I'm just looking at his per 90 stats right now, and in a team that's struggling so much, his expected goals, expected assists when he was playing at wingback were really good. Tackles 94th percentile compared to other wingbacks, like more than an interception per game. And obviously stats don't tell the whole story, but I think it kind of fits in terms of he's been kind of a shining light whenever he plays, because we haven't won much, especially when he's played, but we've always sat on in these post-game streams and we've always been like, look at Lewis Hall. He's played with so much quality. I think he's really growing into his own kind of, even though he hasn't been given as much game time as he should have. And like Mitch mentioned, even when taking into account how many of his games came against really big opposition, the amount of times he's played against Manchester
as well.
Yeah. The amount of times he's played against top quality opposition, I don't think he's played against any like subpar teams. I think he's only played against like really good teams. And then
towards the end, then when Chile and Cucurella were injured, he did obviously,
true,
but
yeah.
Before that, true, yeah.
Yeah, so I think just overall, I think he showed his quality, and I think he was definitely one of the bright spots of our season. Obviously, he has things to work on, like his finishing, but I think, compared to the other tiers, I would agree most with putting him at the top.
Exactly. And someone in the chat said, except his finishing, which is true. But again, the kid's a centre mid who we turn into a left back, sometimes played left wing back. I don't think we should be too critical of a man like that than not having the best finishing. Not everyone is Marcos Alonso. Not everyone was misprofiled as a kid from being a striker and turned into a left wing back. And then they are a left wing back who's amazing at finishing. Everyone is like that. Aaron, would you agree down this whole putting him in that top category?
No, I would not. And it's not to say anything against him, but I think when you play such little game time, it's very difficult for me to sit here and call you one of our only saviors. So okay. I think he goes in the tier.
Maybe ignore the term of the tier, just like highest tier, if that's the issue for you.
Even then, I wouldn't put him there because although he was good when he played, it's about sample size. You have to take that into account, and his sample size isn't the biggest, so it is very difficult to sit here and put someone in the top tier who's played like a handful of games. But that being said, I feel like when he has played, he's been like a breath of fresh air because you see the drop-off in levels when we go from Chilwell to Cucurella, and for him to come in as an 18-year-old or however old he is, who's a midfielder who's being shoehorned in at left-back and put in some of the performances he had where he's able to carry the ball forward. He's got a lot of attacking intent, albeit his defensive abilities and the way he reads the game aren't quite there yet. He's got that to work on, but for someone who's a midfielder playing in at fullback, you can't really fault him too much. That's like, for example's sake, if we had like Carney playing right back or some shit, like it's not his natural position. So if he's not going to be great defensively, you can kind of understand it. But with the performances that Lewis Hall's put in this season, I do tip my hat off to him because it's commendable to be able to come into a squad when you haven't really played
at the age of 18 as well.
Yeah, at the age of 18, not playing many games at the highest level, being able to come in and put in some of the performances he had, being some of the better players on the pitch when he's played, as you said, one of the top 2 or 3 on the pitch on the day. it's very promising for the future. So for me, I'd put him in the tier just below. I know it doesn't make a difference because you both put him on the top, but yeah, he's got a very bright future.
I hear you. Aaron, to make sure this won't happen again, that, you don't get where you want to put it, at least to begin with, I'll let you go first on this one. Raheem Sterling, where would you put him? Obviously, in the end, finished as joint top goal scorer alongside Kai Havertz, both finishing at 9 goals. I think that's in all competitions. But 9 goals for Raheem Sterling still ain't good, no? So where would you put him?
Well, I made the mistake of when I bought my shirt for the season, I put number 17 on the back because I got a little bit excited with the pictures in LA and all that shit. So jokes on me for that one. But I think for Sterling, it's probably it's between subpar and poor. I think poor if you're looking at his standard and ability as a player. But I think subpar when you take into account just how poor the whole squad has been, and it's very difficult to try and shit on one player when he's been surrounded by a cesspool of shit. And although he's been in around that, he's not had the greatest of performances. He's had chances where he should be scoring a lot more goals. He should be making better decisions. He should be able to sort of drive with the ball a bit more. He wanted to come here and be the main man. So you're being given that opportunity. You're playing a lot of games when a lot of fans don't even think you should be in the starting 11. You're being given the chances and you're not really delivering. He's done well to end as, well, I say done well. He's ended as top scorer. He's not got many goals, so that tells you everything you need to know, really. But he has had some performances where you look at him and you think, okay, Raheem, this is kind of what we expect from you. So I'd go subpar, and the only reason I say not poor is purely because of the fact that the whole team was quite shit. So it's difficult to really pin it all on one person, and I think Raheem Sterling easily becomes one of those scapegoat type players because of his pedigree as a footballer.
Okay. I will hold my own judgment to last. So Adash, I'll let you go. Would you agree with Aaron? Would you put him in a different category? What would you say?
I'm gonna go lower. I'm gonna go for poor. I think in terms of the standard of what we were expecting and the way he has played in the past, I think it just hasn't been there this season for us. I also feel like, I mean, obviously not his fault, but him earning the kind of wages he has, and then him coming in with the kind of expectation that he warrants, I don't think he's lived up to it. Also, like, I mean, I don't put much credence into the fact that he was our top goal scorer because his competition was Kai Havertz. So, I mean, you take that with a pinch of salt.
Kai Havertz.
Yeah, I know. I mean, to me, when I looked at him, I thought he's kind of like this. He was going to be kind of like this direct winger who would kind of like attack through the channels and be this kind of goal threat. And he showed glimpses of that, but at his age, at his profile, I don't want to see glimpses of that. That's what we expect from like a Mudryk. That's what we expect from somebody who's younger, who has limited game time. But with somebody with the experience that he's had, I think I expected more than that. And I expected to see a little bit more consistency from him, even if the team was.
Can we also remember at City, the kind of player that he was isn't sort of the way that we play as well. So it does take a while to adapt to a completely different system of football that you're playing. Where he was at City, he had Aguero in front. He had Aguero to his side in the middle.
How do you explain that his best time was the beginning of the season?
It's difficult, but again, you do have to take that into account as well, that he is playing a completely different type of football.
No, I agree with that. But that's why if we're saying, okay, he needs time to adapt, why was he best at the beginning of the season and got worse and worse and worse? To be honest, at the very end, he kind of, picked it up a little bit again, I will say. But the best Sterling we still saw at the very beginning, arguably under Tuchel.
But then I do think you can also say he started off well and then the whole team sort of petered out. So it kind of goes into, it's not just him really. If the whole team isn't performing and his performance levels drop, you can attribute some of it. I'm not saying all of it, because ultimately as a professional footballer, you still have to maintain your levels of performance. I still think that it's a bit unfair, because if the level of the whole team has dropped, you can't expect Sterling's path to continually keep going upwards. I think it is very normal.
But by that logic, won't we have to apply that to almost every player we're going to discuss now and then, though? Because for every player, it will apply that all the other players were also bad.
But then I think you have to remember, being a new signing, having played the similar system of football, albeit Tuchel left early, you've got a new manager, and I get all that as well. But being comfortable in an environment, having played with these sort of players before, is certain things that you have to take into account as well.
But out of the other players in the squad, wouldn't you expect Sterling to be the one to adjust, to kind of provide that leadership in terms of like being able to adapt and being kind of one to be on the front foot. Instead, we saw he kind of became much more reserved. I mean, for me, the biggest thing was that he wasn't even confident in his own ability anymore, and he kind of just petered out into like kind of one of my biggest criticisms of Pulisic was.
But then,
the fact that,
can you blame him for his confidence levels dropping when you're going from a City team who are absolutely insane, winning loads of football matches? He's got quality all around him, scoring loads of goals. They're winning trophies. He comes into a Chelsea side, and then the complete change from scoring loads of goals, winning loads of games, winning silverware, this, that, and the other. It's a completely different change up. And when a player goes from being at the peak of their powers and it suddenly all drops down, you can expect confidence levels to drop. It's not going to be like, oh yeah, cause he's Raheem Sterling, cause he's the supposed main man, cause he cost us 50 million, cause he's got this pedigree from being at Man City and Liverpool before and having these mad performances and being a very talented player. You can't just ignore the fact that a player's confidence can drop when you're going from that environment to this, where it's been completely horrific, to say the least.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but I would have like two things to say against that. The first one is that he himself, the reason why he left City was to be that main man, to kind of have more of a role in terms of his own team, as opposed to City, where he was part of a larger system. That's the reason why he wanted to join. And the second thing I would say is that if he didn't expect that to have happened to him when he initially joined, that kind of drop off in quality, then like that's kind of like delusional, right? Like anyone who would leave City to join Chelsea knows that there's a drop off in quality, that you're going to be playing with a different set of players.
It's not going to be to the degree that it was this season. When you look in the past, look at the levels that we've played at. We've not been a bottom half team for God knows how many years, all bar the season where we finished 10th. But besides that, in the last 20 years, we have not been a bottom half team. So nobody could have really anticipated the drastic levels of drop off. Okay, we weren't gonna. When you're going through ownership changes, you're not going to be at that same level. You might drop a bit, but no one expected that drastic of a drop. So to say that Sterling should have expected that is very unfair.
See, it's weird.
Havertz is shocking.
Shout at Lewis and shout at everybody that joined from Lewis's stream. Big up all of you guys. Stay tuned. I think we're going to have a good time here because we're having some interesting debates here. It's weird because I actually agree with most of what Aaron's saying, but everything that Aaron is saying, to me, I'm deciding between shocking and poor, not between poor and subpar. And I'll put him in poor for now because I will say poor, and that makes two people say poor again. Sorry, Aaron. But what I want to elaborate on that, even though I think you make, like I say, a very good point on pretty much everything you've said. First of all, I think if we're going to give him the confidence dropping excuse, we have to give that to everyone. Like literally everyone in the squad then deserves that excuse because sure, Sterling went from one club to another club, sure, but also the other players weren't losing every game last season. Whether that was at Chelsea, whether that was at other clubs, and look at Enzo Fernandez. Now, not at his peak as much as Enzo as Sterling was beforehand, but Enzo still managed to still pretty much always be good to decent. Sterling didn't, and a few people in the chat mentioned it a few times. What's the frustrating thing about it for me is that he and I know it's not always about that. And I know sometimes people say we put too much of an emphasis on that. But when I understand every player can have a bad day. I understand every player can have a bad season. I understand the more bad days you have in a row, like we just talked about, your confidence will eventually drop. That is totally fine. But what is not fine is not trying and not running and not pressing properly and passing backwards every time we have a counterattack when you're the one fast winger that's supposed to make us counterattack quickly. And those are the things that annoyed me much more about Sterling, where I'm like, why aren't you, you wanted to come here to be the main man. Why are you being an awful role model? Like he constantly was slouching. He was never working hard. He was coming in to be the main man. And then he was consistently being a bad example on everything that happened off the ball. And I'm like, either it's just bad scouting to get a player that wants to be the main man and him then turn out like that, or it's just we have to be critical of him because you can't want to be the main man and then never even be a good example. To me, that's just not good enough from my perspective. And therefore, I think shocking would be too harsh because he still scored 9 goals and he still had games where he did well. But I personally don't think he gets to be in subpar personally. But hey, here we are. That's why we have different opinions. But it's weird because I literally agree with most of the things you said, Aaron. For me, it's just more decided between two other categories. It's kind of strange.
I've lost every single time here. What is going on?
I'm sure it will change, bro. I'm sure it will change.
Just fake agree with me if you have to. Just fake it. At this point, you might as well.
I got
Give
you
me
for
one.
next player.
Give me one.
No, Aaron, we will not fake agree with you.
Damn it.
Maybe we will fake agree with you later. We'll see. If this keeps happening until we're player 25, I might start fake agreeing with you. Adash, I'll let you go first.
I'm going to fake disagree with Aaron.
I'll let you go first on this one. Ngolo Kante. Another difficult one who has now left, unfortunately. Shout out Kante, but also not shout out Kante because he was always fucking injured. He is almost in a Zakaria situation. But I will say Zakaria had more good games this season than Kante did. So, where do you put Kante, Adash?
I mean, Aaron was saying, Lewis Hall, smaller sample size, it would be difficult to kind of judge him based on that. Kante's played less minutes than Lewis Hall. I mean, I feel like we should rate two halves of N'Golo Kante. The top half of his body, like subpar average. Bottom half of his body, shocking, because his legs are just completely gone. They went on holiday and they haven't been back.
He's about 5 foot tall. So, like, what did he do with the top half of his body that was any useful?
His smile.
All right, fair enough. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's really tough because we didn't really get to see much of him at all, and it was kind of. I'll go subpar, because I'll go subpar because I feel like he wasn't bad in the performances that he made, but also some of the lack of the fact that he hasn't been performing or he hasn't been on the pitch to perform is also somehow kind of like due to him, I guess. Or I guess we have to take that into account somehow.
I mean, he was taking up 290k a week for being on the physio bench. So,
yeah. To be fair, now he's getting 100 million for doing the same thing.
Yeah, but at least not from us. So,
Yeah.
But
more power to him.
To be honest, Aaron, I will be quite upset at you if you change this Kante now. Because the fact that we've done 6 players and they are currently in 3 separate tiers, 6, each one has their own separate tier, I think is incredibly satisfying. So, Aaron, would you stick to this, or would you disagree with Aaron and put it in a different category?
The fact that none of you have agreed with me so far just really makes me want to change it just for the sake of it now. Like you've really pushed my buttons now. So, he's barely played. So like, I feel like there should be a whole separate category just called Kante.
NA.
He's just barely played.
NA. To be honest, we could put Zakaria in NA as well. Yeah.
Oh, but that would mess up your little pretty order, wouldn't it? Having
Exactly.
2 players in the same. Oh,
Exactly.
No, but then the next player can be subpar, and then Kante can go into NA.
Yeah, but if I add now, the reason why we can't add another thing is because
They
we
won't
can't fit them
screen.
all on screen. As my
Yeah. But yeah,
so we need to stick with. We can change one of them. I'm happy with that, but we need to stick to 6 tiers.
I think it's difficult. I think the only way to judge him, I can't sit here and judge a man based on his injuries. Like, it's not his fault. I'm not gonna sit here and blame him for getting injured.
Maybe it is his fault though.
Nah, I'm not buying that one. And he's too cute. I don't wanna put that on him. So I'm gonna let that slide. But I think for his performances, I think you'd have to say average, because it's not like he's had poor performances. I think he's been pretty decent when he's played. He's not been like that same level because he's not had that chance to sort of get the minutes under his belt, get into his rhythm sort of thing. His body doesn't allow him to do that. But I think when he has played, he's been decent. He's been like, I say decent, that's going to mess up the thing. He's been average. He's had some good games, some games where he's been a little bit.
Liverpool at home under Bruno, he was amazing. But
yeah, that was,
all the other games, it was kind of all right.
That's when
Never remember him being awful,
alien.
but
yeah, so that's why I say average, just because he's had that game against Liverpool was nuts, but then he's been a bit hit and miss, so I'd go average.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Like, I was deciding between average and subpar, and for the satisfaction of it, I would like to say subpar, but to make Aaron happy, I would like to say average. So now I don't really know. It's a difficult one because obviously his constant injuries do annoy me, and yeah, of course, Aaron makes a good point. It's not really his fault. I mean, I guess we don't know that to every extent, how much of it is his fault or not. Sometimes I can imagine Kante being such a quiet man that he knows his muscle isn't fully healed yet. Manager and doctor say, like, you good to go again? And he's like, yeah, sure. He won't say no. So I feel like maybe that's half the issue. I'll be nice to Aaron. I'll give him average. Also because Kante has not played. But on the basis of that, I think you could very much argue that Zakaria deserves to be indecent. Because if we're going by only what they played, then I think Zakaria deserves to be indecent. So that's the only reason I'm a little bit struggling with it, because I feel like, okay, if we're lowering everyone from their average performance, if they barely played for whatever reason that was, and putting them one lower because of that, I can be on board with that. But if we're doing it for some and not for others, then I find it a bit more difficult. But I give Aaron the average just because I was trying to decide between those two anyway. But yeah, I would probably otherwise just have gone for the subpar.
In fairness, with the Zakaria one, I done it based on sample size as well. Same with Lewis Hall. You can only judge them on what you've seen. So I done mine based off of sort of the minutes that he played. And that's
but did you do that with Kante this season as well? Or did you base that off Kante's last 7 years?
No. I literally just did that on Kante this season. I said he hasn't really played much, so there's not much to judge him on. I said you can only judge him on what he's played. Liverpool, he was very good.
But don't you think those games that Zakaria did play, he would deserve to be decent? Purely
no, because although he had some good games, there were some games where it was like, okay, I barely noticed you were even on the pitch. Like as a player in the midfield, I should be noticing you on the pitch. I should at least know that you're even there. Like there's games where it was like, oh, I didn't even know he was there until like he got subbed off.
Yeah, no, okay, fair enough. I'll let you have it, like I say. So you're happy, so you get that one, even if you ruin the whole satisfaction of it. So I hope you're happy.
I don't want your pity. If you're gonna do it,
well, you got it now. You can't do nothing about it. What are you gonna do about it, right? Let's get to Hakim Ziyech, shall we? Who is another player who I don't really know what to do with, because I mean, you barely played. When you played, you were up there with the amount of assists for the best players. You kind of created something all the time. And you kind of tried pretty hard every time you did get a chance, even though it never happened. But you were also in Paris already, but that wasn't your fault. So I don't really know where to put him. I'd put him in subpar, I think, because anything lower feels almost, because I don't think he was poor or shocking every time he played. But overall, he's kind of poor. That's why he didn't play more, if that makes sense. But I don't think he still warrants to make it to average. Obviously, we could look up all the stats, how much did they play, all of this. But this is already going to take long enough. So if we're more going to do it by feel. Do you know what I mean? We're doing it 2 weeks after the season's finished, basically. So we're doing it more by feel rather than being exactly precise. And guys, get involved. Do you know what I mean? I'm very intrigued. I do try to follow along what everybody else says all the time as well. But yeah, I'd probably put subpar, but I'm happy to be convinced by good arguments, if I'm honest. Aaron, I'll let you go first on this one. After myself, I guess. So second. But would you agree with subpar? Would you put in something different? It's another tough one. I'm sure there will be some way it's a bit easier to place them.
It's, again, another hard one because he hasn't really featured all that much, so it's difficult to really say where he goes. But I think for me personally, I think I'd go in the subpar as well, because the one thing we've always been annoyed about with Ziyech is that it looks like he doesn't really try. But when he has had a chance more recently, like he has looked like he actually gives a shit. And that's
no less than all the others anyway.
That's one thing you can commend him on, is that he's actually shown like a better attitude to what he had in the past. So, I mean, fair play to him. You should do that as a professional footballer anyway, but to see the improvement is a good thing. But yeah, he's been decent. Like he's not been anything special. I think we can all agree with that. But yeah, he's not been the worst either. Like not what the general levels of Ziyech that we sort of expect and already know from prior seasons, where he has a few good games, but other than that, he's pretty shit. So I'll go subpar.
Fair dues. Alash, are we going to get the first full house, or would you put Hakim in a different category?
I think this one's also like tough, like you guys mentioned, in terms of like it wasn't just the fact that like he got so little minutes, but the minutes that he did get were like often like he would get like 20 minutes at the end of every single game. So it would be difficult. I can empathize from like his point of view, I guess, in terms of like how he wasn't able to put much of an imprint on the game. And so that makes the kind of output that he had. I remember like he would just randomly pop up with like an assist or something. That makes it all the more impressive. But I think overall kind of, yeah, I don't know if I would say he's a full tier above Sterling, but I also don't, I think like compared to his sample size and compared to, I guess, the general expectation, he's been subpar. He hasn't been too bad, but I don't think he's been anything special, anything outstanding, and he's definitely one to get rid of for the summer, I think.
Oh, yeah. That I think we can all agree on. But yeah, fair enough. We leave him in subpar. And we go to Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who, before anyone ruins it, I will put in decent, because I don't think he's had really any bad games. Now, you could absolutely put him in average, and his somewhere between there, in my opinion. He's had some average games, he's had some good games. So it's, I guess, somewhere between that. I understand you guys are probably going to put him in average, hence why I said decent, because you guys are probably going to say average and he's going to end up there anyway. But yeah, he gets my extra bit of love because, I mean, he's leaving now. Although the AC Milan thing might not happen anymore, so who knows. But, you know, before he leaves, one last moment of love from me to Ruben Loftus-Cheek in the Chelsea shirt. So I'm going to say decent. But Adash, would you go along with me? I assume you're going to say average. And I know Aaron is going to say average. If that.
You know what? I'm actually deciding, and I think I'm gonna go decent, especially looking at the players we have in average.
Lucky Aaron.
Aaron's getting outvoted again. No, I think it hasn't just been like his overall quality, but I think it's been the consistency that he's had whenever he's been kind of plugged in. I think he hasn't needed any kind of like adaptation period. He hasn't had like a couple of games where he's been off, but I think he's been consistently at a similar level. That level wasn't too high or at a level that we would want it to be or the level that I think he can achieve. But I think nonetheless, he's been pretty decent. And I think if you're looking to point fingers in terms of places to improve on for the season, I wouldn't point the finger at Ruben at all. I don't think he was part of the problem. He wasn't necessarily like the bright shining spark that Lewis Hall or some other players that we're going to get to are, but I think you know it could have been much worse from his standpoint this season, and I think just sad goodbye. But I think he was decent this season. He offered us quite a bit.
Fair dues. To be honest, I did not see that coming. So Aaron, I almost feel a little bit bad. Would you have put him in average? Would you have even put him any lower, or would you shockingly even agree with decent? Where would you put Ruben this season?
I don't know what gives you this impression that I don't like Ruben. I really like.
Joking around, bro. It's all good.
Bro, I would have gone decent as well. Like, I think
you get full hours from Ruben. Who would have thought that?
I just want to make you happy. No, I would have gone decent anyway because I mean, he's been unfortunate. Like, there's times where I've seen Gallagher in the starting 11, and I'm thinking you've got Ruben sat on the bench who is much better than Gallagher, but he just doesn't get the look in, and he's been forced at times to play a position that isn't even his. He's been shoe-holding at wing back and shit, so it's kind of been unfortunate for him. But I think even when he has played, he's done a decent job. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and shit on him because there's plenty of other people that deserve that, but he's done pretty well. I'm not gonna clown him. I think he's obviously never hit those heights that we thought he would have pre-injury, and that really screwed his career over. And I think if he didn't get injured that season, we'd be talking about a very different player, and I don't think he'd be going right now. But yeah, I'm actually kind of sad to see him go myself. So, yeah, I'm going to go with decent.
Love it, bro. Absolutely love it. All right, next one, Aaron. I'll let you go first on this one. Ben Chilwell. Obviously missed large chunks of the season with the main injury from the beginning still being the ACL. Then he did his hammy once, missed the World Cup. Then he did his hammy again just before the end of the season. Again, not one where I'm sure where I'm going to put him. Where would you put him, Aaron?
For me, I'd put him in average, and I think it's unfortunate because he's obviously been hampered by the injuries that he's had from last season, and it's difficult to come back and get back to that top level from there. So I'm not going to sit here and blame him all that much. He's had games where he's been good, games where he's not been so great, but I think it's very natural. When you're coming back from such a hefty injury, you're not going to reach those heights. Like, your body physically cannot do the things it used to do. So I do feel sorry for him, but the fact that he's still our best left back tells you everything you need to know about the other guy, who we'll get onto later. But yeah, I don't think he's been too bad at all. I'd go average.
To be honest, I probably agree. I think you've said it all, really. I don't have much more to add. I still think it really annoys me almost when there's some people that are, Chile has been bad this season and, you know, we need to sell him, he wasn't good. I'm like, the guy did his ACL, came back, got another long-term injury. Like, you can't really judge this season as this is how good Ben Chilwell now is. You know, but for this season, I think average is pretty fair. Adash, would you go along with that as well, or would you have gone for something different?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you have to contextualize it in terms of, like I said, coming back from an ACL injury and then just the general kind of situation around the club. I think he performed well and he never got a consistent run of games. I think in those kind of like short spurts where he did play, I think you're able to see that kind of improvement. I remember at the beginning of the season, it was kind of a little bit ropey in terms of like how he was playing, but it improved as it kind of came on, and then he had injury setbacks, which I wouldn't too much fault him for. So I'll go with average too.
Fair enough. Alsti in the chat said, according to your Kante injury logic, Chilwell should be in poor. Is everybody hearing me all right, yeah?
Yeah.
Because the chat here said, having trouble connecting. Please check your internet connection. That's weird. Anyway, I disagree. First of all, I mean, Chile did also have really good games. Remember that game when he came on against West Ham on the Tuchel still? He won us the game literally by turning up. Kante didn't do that once this season, winning us a game, quite frankly. So, like, yeah, I wouldn't put it quite in the same situation, but in the end, they ended up in the same category anyway. So I don't really know what anybody is complaining about. But yeah, played really well under Potter. I mean, partly, I guess, but obviously didn't play much under Potter. But yeah, we all agreed on the average anyway, and move on to Christian Pulisic. I just don't know. I'd ask you to have something in mind where you put Pulisic, because it's another one that barely played. In my opinion, didn't play enough on occasion. Obviously got a bit unfortunate that when he would have gotten a bit of game time just after the World Cup break, when he was also in good form from the World Cup, that he got injured in like the second or third game after that. Even though the 2 games before that, he was probably our best player in each of those. But since then, he never really managed to fight his way back into the team. I do always have to wonder with Pulisic, because I'm like, you're clearly a good player. Yes, you maybe lost an edge of pace with all your hamstring injuries a couple of years ago, but you're still really a good player. You can finish, left foot, right foot, like you can dribble, like you're a good player. How can you not make it into the team under so many different managers against such poor competition in the team? Like, in terms of ability, obviously now we added Sterling and Mudryk, but especially before that, I was like, I thought Pulisic on ability was better than most of the other wingers we had. And I was always sat there, how did you not make the team? And it always made me question whether he doesn't train properly. And I can't sit here and say that is the case, but because I think talent-wise, he's better than most of the others. The fact that he never made it into the team, I'm like, surely not this many managers can just be morons. So, yeah, it's difficult. I don't think he deserves average, but I'm deciding between subpar and poor, because there was definitely poor games. I mean, his last touch for the football club was missing a 1v1. But I also feel a little bit harsh putting him in poor, because he didn't really play that much. And he, at the start of the season, was he still playing wing back this season? Was that only last season? I don't remember. But another Potter didn't really get much of a look in either. So I don't really know. I am somewhere between subpar and poor. Have you made a decision, Adash? Where would you put him?
I mean, I would probably, my first choice would be to put him in NA, but I guess I would have gone for subpar, because I feel that I agree with your sentiment, like you mentioned, in terms of like, if you have so many managers that don't consistently give you a run in, even at times when you show your quality, that means there's probably something more than what meets the eye in terms of his performance and his general attitude. But that's all just speculation. I think purely on the pitch, he had a decent stretch of like 1 or 2 games where he played well. But apart from that, just little cameos. And I don't think he particularly impressed in any of those. I'll probably go in subpar. That might be a little bit harsh on Ziyech, but I think Ziyech also got more minutes and more useful, productive minutes than Pulisic.
I wonder, actually, that would be interesting to check. I don't know if I mean, I'd ask you want to quickly check it, because I'm obviously constantly doing the flipping thing here. It would be interesting if Ziyech actually had more minutes than Pulisic. I would guess somewhat similar, if I'm honest. Maybe are you sure that Ziyech would have more?
Pulisic has more minutes. Pulisic had 250 more minutes.
Okay, there.
So I stand corrected, but it certainly didn't feel like it. I guess Pulisic had more starts, but
yeah.
Maybe,
and I guess Pulisic had more game time early in the season when Ziyech had none. While Ziyech had a bit more like towards the end now. So I guess it's more freshly in our memories, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think that would make sense. But yeah, subpar from you. Aaron, you decided where you put in Pulisic? And if you're undecided, what are you deciding between?
I'm deciding between subpar and poor. I think poor would be a bit harsh, because he's not, like, from what I can remember of the season, it doesn't feel like we've seen much of him. And you think about it, like, in terms of like raw talent, he's the most talented winger we have at the club. I will die on the hill with that one. Shout out Clutch, because I do appreciate Pulisic as a football player, and I think we've seen what he can do in like Project Restart when he was absolutely on fire. Like he's a quality footballer, but he's just his injuries have really derailed his career, and he never progressed in the way that he should have. And it's unfortunate because when we signed him, he was a really exciting player, and we've only seen glimpses of that during his.
And we have American ownership now. We couldn't even make any use of having the biggest American footballer.
Yeah, the LeBron James of soccer. It would have been it would have been good to use him for the. Yeah, I've seen the show that they said it, and it sounds a bit like that. But yeah. In terms of like a PR perspective, he would have been
LeBron James.
But yeah, I'd probably go subpar, and I do feel sorry for him because I feel like at times he was unfairly not given as many minutes as he should have, where he's actually been one of the better performing players. But I guess that's the game, really, and it's a shame, but I think it is time for him to go because for his own career, more so than anything else, I think he needs to really go somewhere where he's appreciated and he's going to get the minutes that he deserves.
Yeah, absolutely. Although USA, shout out Bobby. I need to bring you back on the stream again as well. I need to remember it because I have some people I text on WhatsApp, some people I text on Twitter DMs, and then some people just roll down the all day. If I haven't had you on in a minute, I need to definitely get you back on next week if we can make it happen. But yeah, I'd probably agree on subpar, but like Bobby obviously said, the signing two wingers in January just after obviously Pulisic and Sterling both got injured in the same game against Man City wasn't ideal, and he definitely would have played more in the second half of the season otherwise. But at the same time, he's leaving now anyway, so what difference would that have made? But yeah, we get to Cucurella. Now, I said earlier, if Mendy doesn't go in shocking, who other than Cucurella does? And a few people in the chat actually disagreed and were like, he should go in poor because he had a few good games. And I would probably agree with that, actually, but I know most people won't. So it's a difficult one because I still see Cucurella's point in how Potter tried to play in the back three of being this aggressive kind of third centre-back, but that's not your normal back three like a Kante or a Tuchel player, a bit of a different style player that you don't usually have. But it worked in like 2, 3, maybe 4 games. Dortmund at home, for example, he was a really good player in. But the amount of games where he wasn't, it's just also too many. Like he didn't score. What was it? Wasn't it against Dortmund anyway when he had the huge chance? Obviously, we won in the end anyway, but still when he just missed it or didn't, took way too long to shoot. Then obviously that mistake against Villa, which essentially lost us that game, which cost Potter the job, which brought Lampard in, which made the season even worse. So really, it's all Cucurella's fault. I still think I'm going to go in shocking because, again, if I don't put Cucurella in shocking, who will I put in shocking? Because I don't think Mount deserves fully shocking. I personally don't think Havertz deserves fully shocking. I don't even think Gallagher deserves fully shocking. And then who does? Maybe Aspie, because other than United away, I don't remember him ever being any good. So purely, and Aubameyang, obviously, but purely on the fact, on the basis of that, I'm like, I want a few people in there, even though I could consider poor. I'm gonna chuck him into shocking. Aaron, do you agree? I know you're not a particularly big fan of Cucurella, but I guess there was a few good games. But was there enough good games to leave him out of shocking? I don't quite think so.
Nah, he stinks, man. He's got to go. He's horrific, especially when you've got Lewis Hall coming up. You've got Ian Martin coming back from loan. I think, yeah, you've had your year. He cost £60-odd million. He had the manager who was managing him last season at the club as well, and he still couldn't get in a good performance, bar a few at tops. So I think it's absolutely embarrassing, to be honest. And the fact that he's...
For how much money he cost, is crazy.
Yeah, it is embarrassing. And the fact that he had that mistake against Villa, I remember that so clearly in my head, where he completely ruined that game with the where he went for the header and completely screwed it up. So... he's been so underwhelming. You would have thought when you're bringing in a player for that much, you've seen what he was doing last season, you're thinking, okay, you know what, he's a pretty decent player, he could do something here. Then you bring in the manager who was managing him, and you're thinking, okay, now you're really gonna get his potential out of him, and he just stagnated and declined. It was honestly horrific. I think I remember I was at Stamford Bridge for the Dortmund game, and I do remember how good he was there. But aside from that, I couldn't even remember a good game other than the Dortmund one. So for me, it's just it's shocking. I think it's especially when you've got the emergence of Martin and Hall. I think he needs to be the one of those that goes, and then one of the others goes on loan.
Unfortunately, probably won't be purely for the price tag, but I agree with you, especially because now going into Poch plays the back four, but very attacking fullbacks. So that's not Cucurella. I know he was actually a decent attacking fullback at Brighton, but at Chelsea, he hasn't looked like that at all. He looks like he can't cross. He looks like he doesn't know when to overlap. So being an attacking fullback doesn't suit him at all. But then we don't play a back three where he can be a left centre back, because I think that position he can be decent in. And as a defensive left back. But if we're not using either of those, then I don't see the point. So it makes the whole spending 55 million on him even crazier. But Adash, would you disagree and put him any higher, even though now you're going to have to do much to change it at this point?
Savior. No. Yeah. I mean, completely. Just, absolutely shocking for me. I mean, kind of similar lines as Sterling in terms of like the price and the expectation. Yeah. And then not only that, I mean, he also recommended Potter to us, which clearly didn't work out according to Fabrizio. So there's that. But I mean, I think in general, just didn't necessarily fit our system, didn't fit our squad in terms of the players we had. The fact that we were almost about to lose Levi Colwill for him, at least we didn't, because if we did, that would have been one of the most horrendous like squad planning mistakes anyone's ever made. But yeah, I mean, just in general, I think he's just had a poor season and hasn't kind of bed into the squad, hasn't bed into any of the systems we've played this year. And then, yeah. I mean, just kind of similar thoughts to you guys.
Fair play. Let's get to the next one. To be fair, someone in the chat said this is looking like we actually had a decent season. We need to get a few more players in shocking and the lower categories. And I think we'll get there. But the next one isn't one of those either, with Trevor Chalobah. A player that I thought at times didn't get the amount of chances he deserved. And I'm now deciding between average and decent. I think in reality, it's probably been more average. But if he got more game time, he would have been indecent, because sometimes it felt like he was just constantly getting torn out of a rhythm, back into a rhythm. Like, obviously, he had quite a lot of games now at the end of the season, but spread over the season, he didn't play that much. So I'm kind of struggling to put him in decent, even though he maybe just about deserves it. But I'm going to go average for now, but there is a good chance maybe Adash or Aaron will convince me otherwise. We'll have to wait and see. Adash, I'll let you go first. Would you agree on average? Would you put him in decent? Where would you place Trevor Chalobah?
Yeah, I was going to go for average as well. In terms of his performances didn't necessarily stick out, but I think all things considered, he's just a solid center back option, offered a lot of depth. He also played at right back during kind of at the back end of the season. He played at right back quite often, or at least, I mean, I think he should have played even more, but I mean, it is what it is. I feel like I really like Chalobah, but at times, especially when we're playing against higher quality opposition, he doesn't always fill me with confidence when he's kind of on the ball. But I think he did a better job kind of and in his kind of fullback role than Cucurella did at the end of the season, almost kind of in terms of understanding your role and understanding the system. So kind of just give props to him. And yeah, I think average is pretty good. I think also like quickly to like address the point of like it makes the season look decent, but also like all of these like categories have been kind of like weighted down, because like you're usually like the second highest category would be something higher than decent. So I think we've also like scaled it down, which is why it appears to be like we have a better season. Absolutely.
But yeah, fair. Average from you, Aaron. Would you agree with putting Chalobah in average, or would you go for something different?
I probably would go average. Don't get me wrong. I think he's decent, but I think when you look at the players we're going to have next season, we've got Badiashile and Colwill on the left. We've got Thiago Silva and Fofana on the right. We've got Reece James and Gusto as our right back options. I just don't understand where he's going to fit in for next season. But in terms of this season alone, I think he done all right. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm his biggest fan. I do think there are times where he does look a bit defensively naive, and he can be prone to a mistake. I think I'm sure it was this season where there was like a couple of games in a row where he could have easily quite given away a penalty with the dodgy bits of defending. But yeah, overall, I think it could have been a lot worse. Let's put it that way. So for me, I'd go average.
Fair dude. Yeah, no, I think in the end that is fair. Like I say, maybe decent could have been considered, but I think average is the most fair in the end. Let's get to the next one. Oh, Mason Mount, another tricky one. I'm deciding between these two, personally, subpar and poor. No, I'd have to put him in poor. The games that he played, he just wasn't good. Yeah, sure, we can say he missed a lot of the season and maybe he would have managed to play himself into at least subpar if he was fit for more of it, because I'm sure he would have played more had he been fit. And I'm sure also, especially on the Frank, he would have actually helped us not be quite as shit, in my opinion. I know some people probably disagree with that. But fact of the matter is, the part that he did play, he just wasn't any good. I personally wouldn't go shocking. Maybe some would. But I do think poor is absolutely warranted, personally. Especially now he apparently wants to leave to Man United. Now, let's not talk too much about this. We're having God knows how much detail already over the past few weeks. Still frustrating to me that he is leaving. But on the basis of this season, I don't think I can say much else other than poor, personally. Aaron, would you agree?
If there's any Man United fans watching, he is our only saviour. He's definitely worth 70 million. So please cough up and take him. Now, this season, yeah, it is poor. It's poor. I think when it comes to this, you kind of have to take a player's standards into perspective and sort of what you know they can do. And for the player that he's been prior to this season, I think it's been really bad. I think he ended on 3 goals, 2 assists in the league or some shit. It was pretty poor. I remember the game against Villa, I think it was, when he scored 2, and I think he scored against
and that one of them was the mistake from Tyrone Mings, and the other one was a freak mistake from Emi Martinez. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So he's not had a good season at all. I think it's been.
I mean, it was a good free kick. I shouldn't say, but still, I'd expect a capable goalkeeper to save that free kick.
Yeah, I even when you watch that back and you look at like the slow mo replay, the keeper takes a step to his right before, as the ball's kicked anyway. So if he doesn't do that, then he definitely is able to get it.
Yeah, even Kepa saves that. Do you know what I
mean? Let's not stretch it. But yeah, but beside the point, I think it's been very poor from him, and it's sad that he's gonna go out in this manner, because for a player who's come up through Cobham, who's given us a lot of great moments, good performances, it's a shame to see you whimper out. But I think with all the reports and sort of what we know, I think it's he's calling his Chelsea career quits, and he may well be off to United. So it's going to be a shame, but ultimately it is what it is, and
If he goes to United, I just hope he keeps being poor, really.
Yeah, I don't wish him well if he goes to a rival, which it looks like he will. But if he somehow goes to someone who's not a rival, then all the best.
Yeah, no, I could not echo that more. Adash, similar thoughts? Would you put him in poor as well, or would you go for something different?
Yeah, I mean, just generally similar thoughts. I would have probably gone for subpar, but it's kind of like a 51-49 kind of thing in terms of. I mean, I also love Mason Mount, and I'm not going to deny that I have an agenda or that I have a particular preference towards certain players, but I mean, yeah, the season just hasn't been good. It's just been poor for everybody, and Mount's no exception. He hasn't showed up. He's had these kind of like recurring injuries, and then all the noise around him, which to be sure isn't all like the club's fault, as much as I feel like it is to a majority the club's fault, but it also has to do with Mason and his team to probably want to put out the information that they want. And I think just generally the situation is like pretty ugly, and I feel like that would have contributed to his performances on the pitch, which it shouldn't have. So yeah, I mean,
Adash, at the end of the day, you need to do the right thing. You need to put Mason in our only savior.
Oh, I was gonna. Yeah, I know. Oh no, I'm gonna put him in the tier below shocking. That's the one that Carlito wants.
Yeah, extra for Carlito.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but I mean, there's no point. You guys kind of hammered it home. It's just been a poor season for him, and yeah, it is what it is.
Fair dues. Let's get to Kai next then. Adash, I'll let you go first before I say a word. Similar to Mount, would you even put him in shocking? Where would you put him? Maybe subpar, I guess, but I doubt it.
Well, for me, I might go a little bit rogue. I'm gonna go shocking. I think it may be for me also a culmination of everything that's happened over the past couple of seasons, but I just expect him to progress, and it just seems like he's staying at the same level, if not regressing, every single season. It just doesn't feel to me like he's he's improved at all since coming here. And while he's grown into his body, I don't think that's actually translated to any kind of output on the pitch. It's been just kind of the same story. I mean, how many times have we sat here and just said, "Oh, he's invisible. Oh, he's missed 2 or 3 chances, and then apart from that, been invisible in games." And I think that's not what we expect. I mean, people can say it's not his position and it's not what he's meant to play, but there's some things that are just kind of basic and intrinsic to football, like scoring and like shooting chances, which he's an attacking midfielder. Like he should have those skills regardless. But yeah, I mean, yeah, there was another stat that I think he's the one with the
I don't think this stat by Jazio is quite exactly precise, but in the rough region it is. And
I think that difference is like
XG by 5 is not great, especially just as an example, guys. Lautaro Martinez scored, I think, 16 league goals in the Serie A and did that from an XG of 9. So, like, you know, just to put things into a little bit of perspective. Yeah. Fair enough. You know, put him in shocking. So sorry to cut you off, Adash, but we still have a lot of players to go. I don't want this to last too long. Aaron, would you agree with Adash or would you put Kai in poor?
I wouldn't put him in either. I actually got subpar. And the reason I say that is because it's...
What, in subpar, yeah?
Yeah, I think it's very easy to scapegoat him. And I'll be the first to admit I'm not a fan of his. I don't like him. But I think it's very hard to ignore the fact that when he's not up top, you don't have anyone who's got any aerial prowess, who can't really win a ball. Nobody holds it up and sort of brings everyone into play as well as he can. I'm not saying he's great at it, but nobody really does it to that same level that he can. I think he built up good links with Joao Felix, and they had a decent little partnership going there. And I think
except Frank never played it.
Yeah, this is the problem. But I think in terms of Havertz as a player, it's very easy to scapegoat him. And a lot of the times I've been very reactionary as well, just been very pissed off, and I don't want to see him, etc., etc. But when you're a bit more level-headed and you actually look at it on the surface, I don't think he's been as bad as people make out. Albeit he has been bad, but I don't think it's as bad as people want to paint the picture as. So for me, I think it's subpar purely based off of sort of when you take him out the team and you see sort of what the deficiencies are and what kind of holes that he fills.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Joe, shout out to you again. He says we need a new category for Kai, and that's frustrating. You just want to shake him and say what you're doing. You can be so much better. This is then his potential. He could be so good, just never kicked on. And I agree with that. I would probably put him in poor. So funnily enough, just in the middle of you guys. Even though I agree with most of what Aaron said, I still think for my expectation of him, and because I probably rate him ability-wise a bit higher than others, that's probably making me now rate him lower than you, if that makes sense, Aaron, just because I'm like, I expect more of you. And I personally think if Potter would have stayed and Potter would have played Felix and Kai together a bit longer, I think the end of the season would have been much, much better for him than it was. But it wasn't. And end of the day, he didn't really do enough positives in terms of pressing. He didn't really create enough. He didn't score enough. The only thing he was really got better and better at is his hold-up play, and that I want to give him credit to. But if we still had Giroud would still be much better at hold-up play. So it's like, I mean, we've discussed it in the past. I do think that a lot of the reason why Kai hasn't kicked on is the club's fault, more so than his individual's fault. But I think we're at a point now where, as much as I like him and rate him and I have his shirt and I will always remember, and we will all always remember him winning us the Champions League, I think we've gotten to a point where I think we should accept it's not going to happen for him at Chelsea anymore. So just sell him while we can, while we get some half decent money for him. And I'm sure he will have a great career at other places. I think he will do really well at Real Madrid if he goes there. I think he will do really well if he goes to Bayern. I think he will do really well in most places. I think if Man City didn't have Haaland and played Kai Havertz up front, I think he scored 25 goals a season. But for us, I just don't think it's going to happen anymore. And yeah, I guess overall, with one shocking, one poor, and one subpar, that remains in poor. Reece James, I'll go first in this one. Obviously, in the grand scheme of things, him and Enzo are literally our only saviours. But for this season, I don't think he played enough to be an only saviour. So I know some of it he played injured, and that's why he didn't play so well. But I don't want to put him in average anyway, even though some performances did that because playing injured. But I think he needs to get decent and not only saviour purely because of how much game time he missed. And also that when he played, yes, sometimes injured, he wasn't always great. So I think putting him into only saviour is almost a bit high. But obviously, in the grand scheme of things, like I just said, him and Enzo are our only saviors. But yeah, I will put him in decent. Aaron, would you agree with that, or would you still put him in our only savior on the basis of just how good he is in general?
No, I think you have to be objective to this season because it's a rating of the season and not everyone as a player. So this season, all in all, I think I'd agree. It is difficult because he hasn't had that game time that we would like him to because of his injuries. But same way, I think when he has played, you can see that the quality he has is ridiculous. And to think that we're going to have two of the best right backs in the world at the club next season is absolutely insane. And even if he does have a season where he's got his injury issues and he's not able to play as much, we've got a very capable understudy there. And even if we wanted to do something crazy like push Reece James into like the midfield or something and play him a little bit further forward where he can actually be quite dangerous, we have the ability to do that now. So it's going to be quite exciting to see what happens with him and Gusto together. But yeah, I think for me, it's decent.
Fair play. Fair play. I mean, Adash, would you agree with decent? I mean, we've got 2 for it so far, so you're probably not going to change anymore, but would you agree?
Yeah, I think like in terms of his performances, like purely, it's kind of between average and decent for me. But I think like just in general, like we saw that he wasn't at his full kind of fitness level. He wasn't at his full kind of exertion level in terms of how much he trusted himself, how much he trusted his body, and also because of A, his quality, and B, the lack of alternatives at his position, he was also rushed back, which you can't really kind of hold against him, as well as, I mean, unlike people like Kante and stuff, where you maybe could have held it a little bit against them, I don't think you can do that for Reece in this case, so I'll agree with you guys and say decent.
Fair play. Fair play. Let's get to the next one, and that is Conor Gallagher. I really want to put him in shocking, but I think that would be an agenda for me, and that wouldn't be fair. See, it's weird because I think Lampard ruined it a little bit for him because until Lampard turned up, I think he would have been subpar, maybe even average. But because Lampard played him all the time over players that he shouldn't be playing over, that drastically dragged it down. And now I'm probably going to say poor. I know he still scored a half-decent amount of goals, and under Frank was one of our only goal threats until Sterling started to turn up again a little bit towards the end. It's tough, but I just... Even for his standards, I think he was poor because, and I was saying this the other day, like he looked like 3 times the player for Palace than he did for us. At Palace, he could control the ball, can't for us. At Palace, he could run with the ball, can't for us. Like, it just wasn't good. As much as I appreciate him for trying and for being one of those guys that really wants to be here, and we don't have many of those anymore, unfortunately. So that almost wants me to give him a little bit of an extra one. I still don't think I can, and I still think I have to put him in poor. Adash, would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I part of me has like this like agenda against him, but it's also like this agenda that's been caused by not necessarily even by him, but I feel like yeah, I mean, I'll just go for poor because he's just hasn't shown the technical quality that he showed at Palace, and I think the fact that he's played so much, he can't really hold that against him. Like, it's been the managers who selected him due to the other alternatives, so I'll go for poor. But yeah, I mean, not really showing the signs that we expected him to show after his loan spell.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I always felt even after his loan spell that he should never be a starter for us, and towards the end, he started way too many games. Sure, Man's injury and some other issues, Kante, Kovacic played their part in that. I still feel like as theoretically as a sub to bring on in games, especially when we're having a better season and we need to just bring some energy towards the end of a game to help see out a game, it would be very useful for that. But I mean, other than Newcastle, who seem to only value him at 25 million, my thought is always ability compared to value that we could get for you. He's the first name that should be sold purely because I don't think he adds that much. And if he brings us 40 million or more, we need to cash in on that. That's always what I've stood by. Even like I say, I don't think he's an awful player and can have his uses, but that use should never be in the starting 11. How, I can't go any higher than poor for someone that I don't think should ever start. But I still don't think he would deserve shocking. Aaron, do you think he deserves shocking, or would you agree on poor?
There is not a player I despise more than Conor Gallagher, and I don't think there ever has been. I hate the man with a passion. I can't even begin to explain it, but He honestly, I don't understand what he's doing playing football. He might as well be like some sort of Olympic runner or something because all he's got is stamina. That's literally it. And the fact that he's
The fact that he
managed
always
to,
cuts holes in his bloody socks. I'm like, bro, you need to actually be good at football to be allowed to do that.
yeah, I feel like that's only a thing ballers can do. So I don't really know why he's doing it. But
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he
It doesn't even have massive calves either. It's not like he's fucking Jack Grealish here.
Grealish couldn't cut holes in his socks because they're down to his shins anyway. So there's no way to cut a hole.
No,
But no, Gallagher, I don't even care. Agenda, I don't care whatever it is. Shocking. I don't want to see him at the club next season, please.
That is. Obviously, it remains in poor anyway, but we did hear you out. Good old Badiashile. Obviously, he's called Badiashile, but the song goes Lamborghini and Badiashile. So, you know, it is what it is. For me, one of these two, not quite sure he played enough to get this one, but he most certainly deserves this one. A signing I'm very happy with, a signing I'm surprised by when it was initially became a thing. I'm like, what are we doing? Why is this happening? And it's still a bit of an issue because, especially because he did so well now, that makes the whole Kobe situation even more tricky. But I was still very happy with him. I like him a lot. Great on the ball, great calmness, great tackling. Still needs to show up a little bit in the air, in my opinion, positionally. But the kid's young. You know, he will learn. And with how mature he already plays, is a very good sign, in my opinion. And I like him a lot, rate him a lot. And I could even push him up into only saviour, but I think decent is still fair enough. Aaron, would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's difficult to put him in only saviour because he just hasn't had enough time and he hasn't had enough opportunities to be able to get into there. But yeah, definitely decent. I'm a big fan of his. I think there is a few things that you need to iron out of his game. Like he does make a few mistakes here and there where it's kind of like you need to be more switched on and sort of read the game a bit better. But I think being next to Thiago Silva and having that sort of leader next to him, he's going to learn a lot. So that's going to help him and Colwell, to be fair. So excited to see what happens next season. But yeah, no, he's honestly quality, and his chant is one of my favourite ones. The way the fans rhymed his name with Lamborghini just to force it is hilarious. But no, I love him. I can't wait to sing that next season at Stamford Bridge.
There you go. I mean, Xello makes a reasonable point, I guess, and Lewis Hall did play enough to get only saviour. So I guess from that perspective... Sorry?
I didn't put Lewis Hall there. This is what I said, but you know.
You didn't. That is true. You put him with Lewis Hall in decent as well. So maybe I should put Badiashile in only saviour as well. But I do, as much as Badiashile was very good most of the time he played, I still think he had a more poor games than Lewis Hall did, personally. So I still will stick with decent, but it's on the verge for sure. Adash, where would you put him? If you say saviour now, I might be convinced, but it's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, for me, it's kind of like a coin toss too in terms of between decent and only saviour, because I feel like there haven't been any low lows with Badiashile, but there haven't been like the high highs to necessarily like warrant only saviour in terms of like it isn't necessarily his fault, but we haven't seen like that consistency or like that pure class performance that we've seen from like, you know, the likes of Thiago Silva that for me would warrant putting him in only saviours. But I think, yeah, I mean, he just like oozes quality, and like the fact that he came into the Premier League with so much like confidence and patience in terms of being on the ball, I think that's what surprised me most, and that's what he's been able to offer us. He's had a lot of solid games. I think if he was registered for the Champions League squad, I would have definitely put him in only saviours, because then he would have had the run of games. Like, for example, I remember before the Dortmund game, he got dropped for Cucurella like a game or two in advance so that the team could kind of play together. And then, but if he hadn't had that, then I would have definitely gone higher. But yeah, definitely quality signing for us, and I think definitely played very well this season.
Fair dues. I did give the chat an option now, even though I know obviously Adash also said decent now, but I'd be intrigued to see what the chat says. So chat, please pick between only saviour and decent. Xello kind of followed up on what you said before. It depends on what you mean by saviour. If you mean he saved the season by his performances, then no, he isn't really. But the fact that he's been an unbelievable signing, is a standout positive of the season. See, I agree with you, but you know, the only saviours is more of a kind of a jokey term because we finished 12th, so clearly no one saved us, right? Let's be honest.
Actually, I might if I can change, I might go to only saviours, considering who else is indecent, and now having kind of read some of the comments in the chat, I feel like I might just edge it towards only saviours.
Don't
It's
get peer
kind of,
pressure,
for me,
bro.
it's a contest. Huh?
Don't succumb to peer pressure. It's all right, man.
Yeah, we're all
But you know what?
following
It
law.
puts us in a decent position. If you say only Saviour, Aaron says decent, and I'm kind of undecided, we just let the chat decide. So chat, place your vote in the poll in the chat, and whatever you guys go with, we'll check back in a few minutes' time, and then we'll see. We'll just go back to it and see what the chat has decided, and then we'll put Badiashile in the result of the poll. Let's get to Noni Madueke. Especially on the Frank, to be honest, kind of kicked on at the end from that start against Arsenal, from that start against Bournemouth. Then I think he was on a bench once, but then he started it again after that. Still missing some end product, both in finishing and final ball. But still, I saw a lot of positives. And I think he just about scrapes decent. I think we could do average, but I think he just about scrapes into decent, I would say. Adash, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, a huge fan of him. I think I followed him a little bit in the Eredivisie, and he was really good. And then he came in, he kind of, I think the way he played, and then as well as off the pitch, I think he's just like a player to rally around, a player that most of the fan base just really likes. I think, like you mentioned, the end product is kind of missing, but it's not for the lack of trying. And also, what I really like about him is that if it doesn't pan out for him once or twice, he's not afraid to still go through with it and to still try and attack and try and make something happen. So I think I would go. See, that's the thing with like Badiashile. I think Badiashile was just that step above Noni in terms of overall quality of play and what they offered for the season. So I would go. I'm so undecided between average and decent. I'll wait for you guys to convince me. It's between those two for sure.
Okay, to be honest, I kind of said my piece already. Like, I see what you're saying. I think if he got more game time, he would have looked even more decent. So therefore, I'm like, because you're on the edge, but because I think if you got more game time when you should have done it, in particular from Potter, and also Lampard when he initially came in, that's why I'm giving him just about the higher one, because I'm kind of still between the two, like I touched on. That's why I'm giving him decent. But I think average is also more than justifiable, really. Aaron, where would you put Madueke?
I absolutely love Noni. I think he is my favourite winger at the club right now. I think just the fact that he's not afraid to really get stuck in and go at players, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't put him off. He goes again. I think I like that attitude about a player, because a lot of the times when a player doesn't,
to be fair, isn't Gallagher like that? It's just not very good, but the attitude is still there.
I don't give a shit about that Greyhound, man. Leave it at.
Greyhound.
Fucking man. Yeah, with Noni, I think it's one of them where you don't see it from a lot of wingers, where if they don't succeed with something, they're put off. Whereas he'll keep going. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work the first time, 2, 3, 4. He will still do it until it comes off. And he's a very skillful player. You can see it with the way he dribbles. He's very silky. He's obviously got a lot to learn and iron out of his game and really get to that highest level. But he's got a lot of time to develop. He's still young. He's at a club now where he's at a level where he can actually really start to see what he's about and sort of get him in the comparisons with other wingers to see sort of where he ranks in and amongst that. I feel like in a few years he'll be right at the top. I think he's got every single quality you need in a player to make it to the highest of levels. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what he's like next season. So I'd go decent.
Fair dues. Next one then, Aspie. I honestly put him in shocking. United away, and Isaac in the chat pointed out to me, Wolves at home, probably our best Premier League performance of the season. He was great in those 2 games. Otherwise, I genuinely can't remember him ever even being decent. He's long past it. He should have left last summer. I don't understand why Tuchel got him to sign a new contract. I just cannot comprehend what the idea of that was. He's clearly not a particularly good leader, because look at what happened this season, so he didn't stop that from happening. Frank Lampard is literally saying it's a quiet dressing room all the time since he's turned up. He's the captain. It's his job to change that, to change the attitude, to change the kind of the vibe, the environment, to keep the standards high. And he failed at literally every single one of those things. So off the pitch, poor. On the pitch, poor. I'm sure he's a nice guy and everyone loves him, and we love him for that, and I respect him, and he's an absolute legend and won every trophy under the sun, and we will always love him and respect him. But he unfortunately overstayed and is slightly tarnishing his legacy a little bit. But this season, anything other than shocking would be surprising to me by anyone, quite frankly, because I just don't remember him, other than those 2 games I mentioned, ever being any good. So yeah, that's what I go with. Aaron, would you agree, or would you put him higher than shocking?
Nah, it's shocking. He stinks. He actually stinks. It's he's gone past his best buy date. I think it was criminal when he even got the contract extension in the first place. I don't know why the hell it even happened, but yeah, it's time to call it quits and just accept it for what it is. He's not at that level anymore. We've got the replacement right back coming in the summer anyway, so we don't really need him around anymore. He's not gonna play, so there's no need to keep hold of him. He's still at
Unfortunately,
an age
he will probably stay, but that's
yeah, but he's at an age where he can probably go elsewhere, like back to Spain or something, and still have a decent little.
Oh, he could, but apparently he just wants to stay. So.
Yeah, and I want a fit bird as my girlfriend, but we can't all have what we want. So unfortunately, as P, you need to.
We got a little insight into Aaron's dating life as well.
It's worse than Aspie's career. Well, I say career season. So yeah, shocking as well. But
worse than Aspie's career wouldn't be that bad,
Yeah, not his career. I meant this season, but it just all blends into one when I think about how shit it's gone. But it's thank you for everything, Captain. But it's time to head off now.
For me, if he does stay, I would just keep him, but not as a player even. Like, I know Reece is injured a lot, so maybe we should just, because yes, Malagusto is there, but if Reece is injured for 6 months straight again, then Malagusto can't play every game still. So
then we can use Chalobah.
Yeah, but Chalobah gets money, Aspie doesn't. So but yeah, if we turn him into a different role that's not a player, I would be absolutely happy with that. If he really wants to stay, I'm like, okay, make him what Czech did, do that. I don't care.
But shout out Aspie on his qualification that he got recently, though. Big him up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, shout out to him. Adash, would you agree on the shocking? I assume you will.
Yeah, to quote Tuchel, in Cucurella, we have our new Aspie, and they're both shocking. So I
can't believe Tuchel ever said that,
I guess he was completely right, and they're both absolutely terrible. But yeah, I mean, for Aspie, it's kind of like along the same lines. I mean, I feel like as Gallagher, you can see he tries, and you can see he really wants to play well. He really gives his all for the club, but he just doesn't have it. And like, I feel really bad for him when he gets skinned or when he's like running back, because like when he puts his head down, you can see like he exerts his whole body for the club. And I really respect and admire that part of him. And I think that's what makes him kind of a leader. And he has that kind of quality about him. But he's just lost the technical ability, the defending quality.
Exactly. There's a reason why Lampard came back as manager, not as player. And it's the same for us.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, shocking is warranted.
As a wise man once said, though, he just hasn't got the minerals.
No, he doesn't quite have the minerals anymore. He ran out of minerals. Joao Felix as the next one. Don't know where to put him. There's almost a validation for every single category. I think every single category you could somehow explain. Because this one, we paid 4 million per goal. So that's shocking. This one is like, yeah, well, he's finishing really poor because my guy loves the woodwork. My God. It's almost like he wakes up without morning wood. That's why he loves it so much. Misses it. Subpar, I mean, yeah. Average, yeah. Decent. You could see the flashes. So you could see that he is a decent player. You could even see the flashes so much that you could say he's arguably was our only savior in terms of attacking ability. But to me, he goes into subpar. I don't think poor is warranted. It's between average and subpar for me, but I just about put him in subpar because of the missed chances. And also the red card. Let's not forget about that. Yes, it was a bit of an unfortunate red card. He clearly didn't do it on purpose. But my God, we got you in a 6-month loan, paid 11 million plus paying all your wages, and you got yourself banned for 3 games in the first game you played. You literally that red card cost us over £1 million. It's insane. But yeah, I'll say subpar. I'm the same Felix guy from last year. I don't remember what exactly you said about Felix, but I remember Percy Beck. Absolutely. So shout out you, but remind me what you said about Felix, please. But Adash, I'll let you go first. Would you agree with my subpar placement of Felix, or would you put him somewhere else?
I agree that he can go anywhere. I'll go a little bit lower for poor, just because of the price tag, the lack of output. I think it's not all his fault that he didn't get to play, particularly at the end. He was just a real bit part player. But in those opportunities, he showed a lot of bright sparks. But for each bright spark, there was also some other aspect of his play that kind of just like reduced it. And he's like, I think there was one stream where somebody said he's the player that gets you off your seat just for you to sit right back down. And I think that's like the perfect way to describe him, because like every shot he hit would basically just hit the woodwork or go straight at the keeper. And I think that's not what we want to pay 11 million for. And I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, I think it's a coin toss between like you can make a case for any of them, I feel like.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Fair enough. One subpar and one poor. Then, Aaron, where would you put him?
It is a very tricky one, to be fair. I think for me personally, I'm gonna go for average, and it's very easy to sit there and say, yeah, his loan cost us this much per goal or this much per goal involvement, this, that, and the other. But I think objectively, you have to look at sort of what he was doing on the pitch, and a lot of the times stats will tell you one thing, but the eye test will tell you different, and you can see he absolutely oozes quality. And there's times where you think, how the hell has he just done that? Or like this is like what we really want or expect from sort of players and the caliber of player we want at our club. So I can understand the sort of argument to say he's lower down, but just for me, when I look at his performances and sort of what he brought to the team, I feel like it's very hard to not sort of take into account all the good that he did. So for me, I can't really put him lower than average.
Okay, so average for you. I guess that leaves us at subpar overall. I think Thomas Bays put it perfectly, really. He says subpar, Felix was enjoyably bad. I think that literally puts it perfectly. And Percy, shout out to you, first of all, for saying that so openly. You spammed my streams with Felix transfer last year. Later, he went to Chelsea and flopped badly. Now you're here to cry. Yeah, fair play to you. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out. I think we all would have wanted it to work out better, and I would have loved him to score 15 goals in his 6 months here, and then we would have definitely signed him, and everyone would have been happy. But yeah, one average, one subpar, one poor. I guess leaves us at subpar because, like I touched on earlier, he could literally go into any category, so I think this isn't too shocking. Broja is one of those other guys that needs himself his own category. I must say average. I know some people will say less than that, but I must say average because I don't think he was that bad in those games that he played, other than Newcastle away. But I mean, he played with Gallagher and Mount up front in the 3-4-3. What do you expect? And then Ruben started the game and came off after 5 minutes at wingback, and then was replaced by Aspie, who then got injured himself later in that game. Like, it was just a nightmare of a day, that whole thing. And still, we lost 1-0 there, unlike Spurs, lost 5-1. So, still better than those. 6-1 even. Sorry. Yeah, how could I forget?
5 after 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's it. That was the one. But yeah, I'll say average for Broja. I still have a lot of hope in him. I just hope to God that he's one of those guys that manages to recover from an ACL injury properly. But obviously, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I'll say average, but I'll put it to you guys. Aaron, would you put him there as well, or would you put him somewhere else?
Yeah, I think it's just average. So, in all honesty,
he really deserves an NA thing.
Yeah, but like the games that he played were so long ago, I don't even remember them. That's the truth of it. But yeah. I remember him scoring against Wolves. I think it was when it was like 3-0 or something. I think he scored. Yeah. But other than that, I don't really remember anything. So
that was the only goal he scored. So
yeah, it's average.
Yeah, fair enough. Adash, would you agree or would you go for something different?
Yeah, no, completely agree. I think definitely his performances, at least as far as I can remember, weren't as bad as some people made it out to be. And at least, well, I mean, this is just me hoping, but I think some of like the insiders like Rob and Felix are saying that he's been pretty impressive in terms of his recovery. So let's hope he can continue that, because if he shows and builds on what he did last season, then hopefully he can be a big part of our attack going forward, which I think he can be.
And he is a very promising player as well, to be fair. Like, when you see a person with that frame who's that quick, it is scary.
Exactly. He just reminds me of Diego Costa in every way. Technically a bit raw at points, but also beautiful at other points. But the pace, the power, the anger, the aggression, the intensity, love it. Absolutely love it. Let's get to the next one. Mr. Wesley Fofana. You know what, Adash? I'll let you go first before I say anything. Where would you put him?
Honestly, if it wasn't for the last couple of games, I would have put him in decent, or maybe not only saviors, but definitely in decent. Yeah. But now it's kind of a toss-up for me between decent and average. I'll go for decent because I feel like maybe recency bias is making us think that he wasn't as good, because at the beginning of the season he was definitely really good. He was kind of a rock and fit in seamlessly to our defense, especially when we were playing a three with Tuchel and then with Potter later. But I think, yeah, towards the end of the season, it's just kind of gone off the rails completely. And I mean, he's completely to blame for that. So let's just hope, I guess, that he doesn't continue that form and he takes some of his form from early in the season, because you can see that the quality is there, the quality on the ball, and then the defensive kind of. He almost at the beginning of the season reminded me a little bit of Rudiger in terms of like making those last ditch tackles, not being afraid to be very aggressive on the front foot when defending. And then he just kind of turned into like the bad Rudiger when none of his like aggression actually came off. But yeah, I guess let's hope that he has the more positive side come out next season.
Pretty so. Fair play. Putting him into decent. Aaron, would you agree or would you disagree?
Yeah, it's definitely decent. I don't think you can really base the last two games and then say his whole season was average, because over the course of the season he had his injury issues, but when he played, my God, was he good. Like he was a breath of fresh air at the back, because we had Silva and then whoever was next to him until Badiashile came. It was kind of like it was a bit underwhelming. But when he came in and he was properly playing, you could see there was a proper player in there. He's rapid. Obviously, he's not like Rudiger levels of rapid, but he's
Not
crazy quick. Yeah, no, he's crazy. He's very quick. He's pretty good in the tackles. He's decent aerially. He scored a goal or two. So he's definitely got a lot of ability, and it's going to be important to sort of get him more minutes next season, because obviously he's going to be competing with Thiago Silva for that right-hand-sided centre-back, and Thiago Silva being his age, he's not going to be able to play that many games. So, in essence, you're going to hope that Fofana plays a lot more. But, yeah, he's having Thiago Silva there to sort of guide him and sort of give him advice and sort of tell him where he's going wrong or what he needs to do is going to be very important. But I'm excited to see him next season, next to someone like Badiashile or Colwell.
Fair dues. To be honest, guys, I was a bit more tempted to put him in average, but you've kind of changed my mind. So I will agree on decent. I do think there are a fair few things that he needs to iron out. Sometimes the way he just passes straight to the opponent needs to stop. And also, I think he was like against United, he gave away a penalty. He should have given away another one in the first half. And there was other occasions where he was close to giving away penalties. Like those are the things he really needs to get under control a little bit. But the man's young. The man's sometimes maybe trying a bit too hard, because he seems to really be like very much so like here for the long run, not one of those guys that are like, like a Sterling, not look particularly bothered about the situation. So, maybe he's kind of overdoing it, trying to help. But yeah, I still believe in him very, very much. And he's an absolutely wonderful footballer. I think we've had enough votes for the time being. And with 55 to 45%, I think Badiashile deserves to go up into only saviors. Also makes it look a bit better, because having so many indecent and having so few down here makes it look a bit wrong, and now it looks a bit better, I think. All right, let's get to the next one then. Who is that? Enzo Fernandez. I think that one is very quick. He needs to go on the very top, if I can put him there, of only savior. I mean, literally, what a player. How he played every game, not every minute, but every game he started since he's turned up, and was at least a 6 out of 10 in every one of those. In the large majority of them, at least a 7 out of 10. His passing is out of this world good. And if we just give him a good midfielder to play next to him, to allow him a bit more freedom to go further forward, we will only see another level of Enzo Fernandez that we haven't even seen yet. And he's still already in that category. What a player. 120 mil, I don't give two shits. Worth every penny in my books. Worth every single penny of it. What a player. Love it. Absolutely love it. Sure, it's going to be a quick one, but Adash, you agree, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, just pure quality. Just been our best player since he came in, undoubtedly. And yeah, I mean, I think he's on a different level to everybody else on the team, which maybe it shouldn't be the case, that our standards should be a little bit higher. But I think that's the way it is, and that's not saying that he's bad, but that's just saying that he's incredible and he's played really well with a bad bunch of players. So kind of unlike Sterling, where in terms of like other players being bad is kind of like weighed him down, I think like with Enzo, you've still seen his quality shine, and he's even tried to like improve players like Joao Felix in his time when they weren't performing without him.
Yeah, fair enough. Aaron, I assume you're going to agree as well, but what words would you put to it?
Absolutely immense player of the season. My favorite player at the club right now. The man is honestly ridiculous. I don't understand how somebody can ping a ball like that so effortlessly. I've not seen that since like the retro times of like Iniestas and all them sorts of players. I just don't know how he does it. He's absolutely ridiculous. Like I said, player of the season, but I can't treat
Aaron showing his lack of age here, calling Iniesta and Xavi retro. But fairness.
Nah, they are though. Like in the grander scheme of things, they are more.
No,
retro.
yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But when you say
pomp,
retro
it was
midfielders,
like
I'm more thinking like
Socrates
Vieira and Scholes and stuff.
Oh no, them too as well. But like in their pomp, when it was like the
no. In ability, I completely agree. It's just in my head, Xavi and Iniesta were still yesterday. Do you know what I mean?
I'm 22, man. Leave me alone. I'm not that old.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You're not.
Yeah, you old man. Your era is different to mine.
Yeah, it's exactly.
But no,
All
yeah, like honestly, I can't say too much more. He's absolutely immense, and we just need someone to partner him next season who's going to complement him well, and we will see him flourish even more.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more. Mihailo Mudryk. I still believe in the kids and hope that he becomes a good player for us, and I still think he will. He needs to fix up his off-pitch situation, filming old men in the gym, what you're doing, saying certain words in videos. Sure, that was still in the Ukraine, but don't be doing that. Yeah. And as much as I do think he should have been given more time than he was on the pitch, I still think I have to put him into Paul. I mean, purely for the miss against United, to be honest, I couldn't even consider putting him in shocking. But I will give him that benefit of the doubt and at least give him Paul. But it really wasn't good. Aaron, do you agree, or would you give him more, like a little higher, due to the benefits of the doubt?
No, I think it has to be Paul, because the most annoying thing is you can see that there is a player and a half in there somewhere, because the ability that he can show, like I remember his debut cameo against Liverpool, I thought, what have we just signed? He's ridiculous. And then it just hasn't progressed since then. But you could see, like, just away from the absolute rapid pace as well, that's not just all he is. He's got a lot of ability on the ball where he can actually, when he actually puts his mind to it and tries to take someone on, he can actually do it. And he's got quick feet, but his first touch is horrific at times. Like it's not.
I do think it's gotten a bit better towards the latter games. That the touch wasn't quite as crazy anymore as the first few.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten better over time, but it's still not where it needs to be. Like when he took a touch, I thought I was watching Lukaku again. It was honestly a joke. Yeah. But over time, it started to get a bit better, which is obviously promising. But he's going to need that more consistent game time in order to actually play himself into some form. And it's going to be a big summer for him. He's going to need to really be showing what he can do in pre-season. And I think he needs to hit less of the gym and get out on the pitch a bit more to practice.
I agree completely with that, actually.
Absolutely. That deadlift ain't going to do him no good.
Yeah, exactly. I don't care that you can jump like 5 foot high. Don't give a shit. You're playing on the wing. You never have to jump. So focus on controlling the ball first, please.
To be fair, his one only goal contribution was a header.
It's true. It is true. But he should have had more goal contributions. And if he did more with the ball, maybe he would have done.
No, that game against Villa when he just didn't pass the Havertz.
Oh my God. He got Potter sacked.
So we should thank him.
That was Cucurella's fault. Yeah, go on, Adash. Would you agree with Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I think his mistake was just as outrageous as Cucurella's. His miss. I mean, after the Liverpool game
against Villa for that big miss, though.
I think
for the Villa miss, he was offside.
Are you talking about the one where the keeper saved it instead of him scoring it for Havertz?
That was another one, but there was one where he just kind of like hit it wide. It was a I remember what you're talking about.
No,
but I think
that one you're talking about, where he put it wide, he was offside for that anyway. But I think, but Aaron mentions another one which was on. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, but just generally, yeah. I mean, the fact that like after the Liverpool game, everyone started making comps of him, and if you look at the end of the season, I swear like his comp is just like the Liverpool game. He hasn't done anything productive after that, I feel like.
The tweets after that Liverpool cameo, everyone was like, wow, Chelsea have got a player here. And then after that, it just dried up.
Yeah, never saw it again.
By the end of the season, it was, what the hell have they spent like 62 million on?
Yeah, no, exactly.
And a lot of people misquote his price. It's not 100 million, it's 62.
Yeah, exactly.
That annoys me a lot.
Same. Chukani Chukwuemeka. I'm going to be harsh now. I'm going to put him in subpar. I know he should have got a lot more minutes, and if he did, he probably would be a lot higher. But for what he played, for what we were promised and sold when we signed him, I don't think he played to that level when he did get game time. personally. I think that. I'm not saying he was bad, hence why I'm saying subpar, not poor or shocking. But I think in the grand scheme of things, for what we were sold in terms of how great of a player we were buying here, other than him falling over 3 times at Anfield, I don't really remember that much, I'll be honest. So I still believe in him very much, and I think he's a great player. But I think even for the lack of minutes, I'm a have to go subpar. Aaron, do you think I'm being very harsh? Where would you put him?
I don't know what's got to your head today, but you are not with it, bro. I don't know what's going on in Austria, but yeah.
I said, I'm not trying to say that he is bad, but for the ability he has, I don't think he showed that at all.
Even then, I don't know how you could give him subpar. Like the thing is, when you're watching him on the pitch, it's very difficult to actually sort of gauge what his main ability is because he's not had that game time. He can't get into
poor man's Ruben is what he is.
I know you're sentimental about Ruben, but come on now, let's not get into that. He's a younger Ruben, let's call it that, and hopefully he doesn't have the injuries that
at the same age. Ruben at that age, Chukwuemeka at the same age. Chukwuemeka doesn't even tie his laces.
Okay, but when all said and done, Ruben at his age now and Chukwuemeka at his age now,
then Ruben won't be able to tie Chukwuemeka's laces. I fully agree.
We go yeah,
but that's in 5 years, not this season.
Yeah, but I still think it's very harsh when you're not getting much game time. It's difficult to really show anything, and I feel like when he has played, he's been pretty decent. So I'd go average, not decent, but he's been average. So I go average.
Yeah, no, you're not unfair. And I know I went a little bit harsh, but I thought I've been quite standard so far, so I'd go a bit out there with one. Adash, are you going to push it up to average, or are you going to agree with me?
Only savior. No, I'm kidding. I'm gonna go with average. I think, yeah. I mean, you could see the quality. He also I feel like he's a player where with time he would have kind of grown into it, and then he kind of would have been able to iron out some of the mistakes and some of the kind of loose touches and loose ends that he had when he did play. I mean, he played so little that it's kind of almost difficult to rate him in a sense, but yeah. I think you can see the quality he had, and if he had played more, we would have seen it. Like, for example, I was watching all of the under-20 games, and he came in instantly, was one of England's brightest sparks, should have won them 2 penalties, and he was that was the kind of play that we never got to see him do at Chelsea because he never had the opportunity to. But I think he
also was playing against better players than at the Under-20s World Cup, I will say.
That's true. But he was also jet lagged after traveling 12 hours to
where is the tournament even happening?
Argentina.
Is
Argentina.
It? Yeah. Fair play. All right, Thiago Silva, I think we could do one play of the season, so I think not in terms of saviors long term because he's 39, but I think otherwise it's pretty straightforward that if you want play of the season, I think most people, I know, Aaron, you said Enzo, but even then, I assume Thiago was second. I think he has to still go in the highest category. Would you agree, Adash?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah. Player of the season for us. Didn't also kind of had his own injury kind of niggles in the middle, but I mean, kind of it is what it is.
I mean, he recovers quicker than all the others, and he's half double their age.
Yeah, I mean, just a role model, a leader for our team, somebody who was kind of like a savior in our season, so a little bit more positive. So I guess, yeah, there's only one place for him to go. I think everybody's gonna agree.
Yeah, I assume, Aaron, you do as well, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Fair dues. Let's get to the next one, another difficult one. David Fofana. I didn't watch a lot. I watched one game with him in the under-21s, and he was awful. And then I saw that he regularly didn't even make the team. If you can't make the team in the under-21s after you've been signed for the first team, he didn't play enough to get anything worse than that. And I'm not purely judging this on the first team, but you didn't even make the squad 90% of the time. And even in the under-21s, you didn't manage to start. You are not good. He's not good enough. He will never be good enough. And I don't understand why we signed him whatsoever. Poor for me. Lucky that I'm not putting him in shocking because I think genuinely, other than Aubameyang, worst signing we've made. I just do not understand the point, and I don't think I ever will, unless he proves me crazy wrong, and then I'll hold my hands up and we'll say so. But yeah, I'm not particularly happy with David Fofana, I will say. Aaron, you probably think I'm being super harsh again, but like I say, if you can't get a game for an under-21s, what are we talking about, man?
No, I'm going shocking. I think he's shite.
All right, fair.
I think he's horrific. I don't know what the scouts were doing buying him, but yeah, he was touted as the Drogba 2.0 because he's Ivorian and he's young.
Mate, he's about 5 foot tall. He's not even tall. What are we to talk comparing him to Drogba?
I'll tell you how tall he is. Hold on. He's not huge.
He's 5'11" or something.
He's a decent height though. No, I can't be asked to bring it up. But yeah, I think he's shy. I don't know why we bought him, but yeah, that's one of the younger players that we missed on. But luckily we've got the other ones right, so it's not too bad. But yeah, he's shit.
Fair. Adash, would you agree with Aaron and put him all the way down into shocking, or would you go with me and poor, or would you even go higher than that?
I'll go for poor, but I share the same sentiments as Aaron. Just yikes. I mean, in terms of like the signing, in terms of the idea behind why we signed him in the first place, I don't really understand it. People who were kind of following Malmo didn't really even like rate him that highly, and that we signed him. And then I swear to God, the only reason we signed him is because Todd Bowley saw Fabrizio tweet that Brighton were close to signing him. And I will stand by that for the rest of Davidato Fofana's career. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. He's going to get a loan, and then maybe he proves something, but I don't know if it's going to amount to anything in the end.
Personally, don't think so. Personally, think it'll be another, what's his face? Papi Chiluboji. But we'll see. I mean, Marco says he apparently chose not to play for the academy. I'm not sure because he was on the bench for them, even when he didn't start. So, but if what you're saying is true, arguably that's even worse.
I don't think you get a choice when you're that shit.
Yeah, no.
I also watched a lot of the academy games, and let me tell you, Mason Burstow and even Malik Mothersill are like 10 to 20 times the player that he is. And they aren't even getting a look in and being considered in our first team, which should tell you enough.
Exactly. Aubameyang, very quick, shocking after Lukaku, one of our worst signings literally ever. Yeah, he had a little spell in that early run of Potter where he did some half-decent things. Obviously scored Milan away. I was even there. Not saying he was always dreadful, but just in terms of everything that just... The signing itself was just so bad that, in my opinion, I have to put him in shocking. Even if when he played, he wasn't necessarily always shocking. But it was just such a stupid signing. And not necessarily from Tuchel, because we never got to see how that really would have worked out, even if he already missed a couple of big chances under Tuchel in that 160 minutes he played in Zagreb. For the ownership to buy him, only to sack Tuchel 3 days later, I've rarely seen anything more stupid than that in my entire life. So shocking for me. Aaron, would you agree?
Are we doing this relative to expectation, or how are we doing it? Because if it's relative to expectation...
Kind of however you want, I'll be honest.
If it's relative to expectation, I don't even think you can say shocking, because no one expected anything. So to say it's shocking when you expect nothing anyway is very, very harsh. But
I guess.
It is.
To be honest, like some people said, Lewis, as much as I love him, they were trying to tell me, oh, what a great signing. Price as well. We're like, what? A proven finisher, a proven Premier League goal scorer. I'm like, oh, yeah, all right.
In fairness to Aubameyang, I do think he was done dirty with the fact that he was not really given any opportunity.
Yeah, no, I agree that he was done dirty, but do you know what I mean?
If
he signed with a fucking broken jaw after his house had just been broken into and he couldn't header for the next 3 months. What was the point, man?
If it's me
personally, he didn't even jump.
I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna go poor. I'm not gonna go shocking because expectations, there was barely any to begin with, and he wasn't really given many opportunities at all. So I think it's harsh to really put him in shocking.
Fair enough then. Adash, would you put him in shocking or would you put him in poor? I understand poor as well. Like I'm not totally against it.
Mate, I'm going shocking. I mean, like Aaron said, we had no expectation for him. I had zero expectation for him, and he still disappointed me. Hasta la vista, au revoir, amigo. Enjoy your next career, your next club, wherever it is, but it just didn't work out. I didn't think it was going to work out to begin with. And
can I just say then, if you had no expectation, how could it be shocking? Because if you don't expect anything in the first place, then you're not shocked.
No.
I was if you expect nothing, you can't be shocked when you get nothing.
My expectation in terms of output, okay, well, we'll put it that way. My expectation in terms of like actual output was nothing, but the reality of like the entire
exactly holistic. My point. You're literally going against the whole preface of the word shocking. There's nothing shocking if you have no expectation, so it can't be shocking.
Call it dreadful then. That's not the point. It's just about is it the lowest tier or is it not?
The tier is not dreadful. The tier is shocking. If the tier is shocking and you're not shocked, he can't go in shocking.
It's not. So the difference is that I was expecting nothing in terms of output, but in terms of how he played, considering everything else, like for example, like Lawrence mentioned, the headers, like his lack of effort, the lack of actually contributing, and when he was playing out on the left, the lack of any kind of offensive, like I don't know what the right word is, but he just showed no kind of threat at all. And I think that's where he disappointed me even more. Although I didn't expect him to be this prolific goal scorer, in every other aspect he did disappoint me, and so that's why I would go for shocking.
Nah, man, I caught you out. Just admit it. It's all right. Don't worry.
Nah.
Nah,
I can't. I'm not having that. I can't allow it.
I ain't gonna say nothing, but I got you there. It's calm.
Yeah. I'm having a good time here.
We'll set up this off camera.
Where does Koulibaly go? One of these two for sure. I just don't know which one. He scored one of our goals of the season with that volley against Spurs, and we all thought, what player? Since then, never really was a good player. And then just when I thought he was scraping that corner again, was actually playing well away in Madrid with a good tackle, injures his hamstring, and we haven't seen him since. Yeah.
Hopefully we don't see him again.
I think compared to expectation, I think I have to put him in shocking. Would you agree, Aaron? Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I said hopefully we don't see him again. But yeah, no, he is absolutely horrific. I'm not being funny. When you're signing him from Napoli and you have such a high expectation of the player you think you're getting, and then he comes into your club and does what he done, it is unforgivable. And I think that genuinely might be worse than the Cucurella signing. Just based on pure expectation, I think that's even worse. But I'm going shocking.
Yeah. I mean, Johnny said it's definitely not shocking. Either poor or subpar. He had some very good moments and games for us, honestly. I think it was so limited, and he didn't play that little amount of games, and until the end, obviously when he got injured and stuff. Nah, for me, I'll have to stick to shocking. Sorry, Johnny. Adash, would you agree with Johnny or myself and Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's. I'm also going to go for shocking, but I don't think it's as far kind of into shocking as you guys did make it seem, because, I mean, like, I understand, like, I was expecting a lot, and as this kind of like experienced figurehead, like you were supposed to kind of like know what you're getting
from play teach. I mean,
yeah, I know exactly.
I forgot about that. Oh Lord, criminal.
I mean, yeah, I'm lost for words. I forgot about that. Oh, yeah, I mean, definitely shocking. I mean, it desecrated the number 26, but I think like in
not
general,
desecrated,
like
he defecated on it.
Not on purpose.
That's
at least.
A good one.
Ugh,
yeah,
I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, yeah. See, I personally am not quite as you, Aaron, in terms of needs to get gone. I think there is still a good player in there that I think we can see at Chelsea. Which just, I mean, it's not my decision whether he stays or not, is it? So
if we're playing a back four, we've got Colwill, Badiashile, Thiago Silva, and Fofana. What use do we have for Koulibaly?
Needing a fifth centre back, because as soon as one is injured and then you want to rotate them, what do you do?
You really think
I
he's going
to
be in a fifth centre back?
Too.
I wouldn't put Chalobah ahead of Koulibaly. I absolutely see what you're saying, Aaron, but I'm like, you're not going to get good money back for him now at all. And I think if you keep him next season, you will see that he's a much better player. He will, not saying necessarily start every game, but he will play himself into playing a decent amount of minutes. And if anything, that will just bring his value back up a little bit again, from my logic. So, and also, like, I don't expect Thiago Silva to be playing constantly anyways. Fofana is very injury prone, so that there's already your right centre back spot. There's a good amount of games where, in my opinion, he can't play comfortably. But, you know, fair enough if other people disagree. I also understand that other people disagree with that. It's totally fair. But I still think when you're a player that's been in one and the same league so many years as Koulibaly has, then when you then do move leagues, I understand why it maybe takes you a little while longer to adapt to it. That's all I'm saying. And that's why I'm like, give him a second season and then see from there. And the last player, before we finish it off with our 4 managers of the season, Mateo Kovacic. Not shocking, but to me goes in poor. I don't think he makes subpar either, if I'm honest. I think I have to put him in poor, personally. Aaron, would you agree with poor? Would you put him in subpar maybe?
No, for the standards you expect of Kovacic, it's poor at the end of the day. And he's going to go City now, be a bench warmer, win a load of trophies without making many contributions. So if that's a career that he's happy with, then fair play to him. But yeah, he was subpar. I think when you look at sort of how he's been over the last few seasons when we've had him, he's definitely been a lot better. I think this might be one of the worst seasons of his career. Obviously, the team doesn't help that. The fact that we finished 12th and we were absolutely shit in general, but just him overlooking it as a as a general thing, you'd think when someone's been here for so many years, they know what the club is. Obviously, it's changing, but they've played with the same sort of players in and around them. You'd expect a lot more. And somebody of his ability, who's ridiculously good on his day, is putting out absolute stinkers. You're sat there thinking, okay, like, are you coming towards the end of your cycle? So, yeah, for me, it's subpar. Poor, and we've probably seen the last of him anyway. But it was a good run while it lasted.
Yeah, fair play. Fair enough. Finish off with the managers then. By the way, shout out to Amit. He messaged this earlier, so let me just highlight that for the time being. Because I initially had only found a tier list that had all the players, but none of the managers. So then he made a tier list that had the players and the managers. So shout out to you, Amit. That was very, very helpful.
Bro, we just skipped my rating for Kova.
Oh, sorry, Adash. My bad. I forgot. My bad. I was so quick to get that. Sorry. Do you agree with Paul? My apologies.
No, I changed my name to Pice. Now I'm Pice, so I'm going to go for Only Savior. I agree. I mean, he progressed a lot, like up to last season, and then he just massively regressed this season, so he was poor. But I'm just joking around.
I do agree. No, I do agree. Thomas Tuchel, 6 games in the Premier League, 1 in the Champions League. It doesn't make shocking for me, but I'll still put him in poor. Also, partly because of his summer decisions in terms of asking for Sterling, asking for Koulibaly, asking for Aubameyang. Well, behind the scenes, I have heard asking for a midfielder, but publicly stating not wanting a midfielder because we don't need one. So that's even PR-wise, that's stupid. Like, he ruined himself. Why do you say publicly we don't need a midfielder, but behind the scenes you want one? Well, which is it then, mate? But yeah, poor for me was not great either. People always talk about, without Tuchel, we would have not, we would have gotten relegated. While that's true, he also lost 3 of his games, drew 1 and won 2. And the 2 that we won was a complete luck by the referee that West Ham didn't get a penalty. Otherwise, we wouldn't have won that game. So, like, out of 6 games, to have 3 losses, 1 draw, 2 wins, when 1 should have been a draw. Yeah, too poor for me, but not quite shocking. Adash, would you agree with that, or would you put Tuchel in somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, this season, like, purely coaching-wise, results-wise, subpar. But then if we're accounting for just general, like, decision-making, squad planning, and his general, like, views on the team and, like, long-term planning, that's 100% shocking. So I'll kind of go in the middle and go for poor. I think, yeah. I mean, also, like, when we say, like, we could have gotten relegated without Tuchel, like, somebody would have played those games and we might have still gotten points.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And also, like, you can say, without 3 wins of Potter, we would have gone. Like, that's not quite how the equation works. But I still see what people mean. But there you go. Aaron, would you agree with poor as well, or would you put him somewhere else?
Nah, I think for me it's subpar because ultimately when you look back at it, it's still way too... Obviously, the circumstances behind the scenes are the reason why he got sacked more so, but if you take that out of the picture and you look at it objectively in terms of pure performance, I do think it was way too harsh to even get rid of him, and he didn't really have much time to...
I agree, it was not the time to get rid of any manager, but still...
he didn't really have the time to do much, so it's a bit harsh to really judge him on the small sample size of the season, and I think even more so, it's kind of like he may have got whatever players he got in the summer, but then to not even have any time to integrate them in the squad properly before you're getting the sack is a bit harsh to judge him on that.
No, I agree. If you rated Bowley, he would be in shocking. Do you know what I mean? But I still don't think, with the Zagreb game included, having 7 games, losing 4 of them, I don't think that. A lot of teams for Thomas Tuchel, for who he is, I don't think that's subpar either, personally.
No, but then if you think about it, there's a lot of teams that have slow starts but then gradually build up. Like City, for a few seasons, didn't have the greatest of starts and then went on to win the league. So I'm not saying
he didn't have that opportunity this year, so I have to judge by what he got, not by what he could have done.
That's the exact point I'm making. He didn't really have an opportunity to try and turn it around, and I think
that's what I'm saying. So I have to judge it by the 7 games that he did have, not by he could have done had he gotten more.
I get that to a certain extent as well, but then we could have done that for so many managers or players. Then if a player has a dip in form, then you just drop them out of the squad completely and they don't ever play again. Like it's easy to take the stance you're taking, and I get what you're saying, but at the same way, it's still a bit difficult to not take that into consideration to a certain degree. So for me, I think it's subpar, but I can easily understand poor. But I think whatever I say doesn't really make a difference anyway. Because
in this case, unfortunately, it doesn't.
Yeah, but I'm just fighting his corner because I love him.
There you go. You get first pick for Graham Potter. I don't think I have to choose much, but Explain why he goes in shocking for you, unless you're surprising me now putting him in somewhere else.
The worst thing is he wasn't even our worst manager, so I don't even know what to say. But
yeah,
it's shocking, but I just want to save the rant for the other guy. So yeah. I'm just going to go shocking. Yeah.
Fair. Adash, yeah, shocking for Graham Potter in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it is what it is. Just shocking. But now we're moving on to hopefully bigger and better things.
The fact that he wasn't even the worst manager of the season that we had is actually embarrassing.
Yeah, it really is. And I still do stand by the fact that Graham Potter is a decent manager. Maybe not for this size club. Maybe he doesn't have quite the authority that you need for that. But I still think that he was put in an impossible situation. And I'm not even sure if... same situation. You sack Tuchel when you sack him, just having gotten a new owner. Even if you put Pep Guardiola in charge, obviously we wouldn't have been as bad as with Potter. But even with Pep Guardiola, I don't think we would have been anywhere near top 4. So this was a bit of an impossible situation. I don't think Potter is as bad of a manager as he looked at Chelsea. But he still has to go in shocking. There's no two ways around it. But...
And he should have gone at the end of the season.
Excuse me?
And he should have gotten until the end of the season because in hindsight, there was no sense in making that decision to fire him when we did.
I agree. But Mr. Bruno... Saltor, that's it. I nearly forgot. For me, goes indecent because that Liverpool game was probably one of our best games all season. And if our players weren't all literally incapable, we should have won that game about 4-0. Tactically, best game we played all season, quite frankly. Liverpool did nothing and we destroyed them all game long. Just didn't take our chances. But that is not the manager's fault. And considering he had 1 day's training, was never a manager before, this was the first time he ever picked a lineup, he did better than Lampard and Potter put together. So, for me, he goes indecent. But obviously, it doesn't matter. He had 1 game. But, yeah. Would you put him in decent as well? Or not quite enough? Because it was only a draw, I am aware. But I feel like that's not his fault. That was the fault of all the players missing every chance we had.
I'm genuinely not taking a piss when I say only saviour. I'm not even taking the piss. I swear to God.
Fair.
I swear to God, I'm not even joking because I'm not being funny.
When that game happened, we all thought, okay, Potter's gone, we're fine again.
Bro, he managed the game for the first time in his life. And he made
Klopp look like an absolute mug.
He had the best performance of the season. He outclassed Jurgen Klopp. If our players knew what scoring a goal was, we would have won that game by so many goals. He brings Kante in like a madman, and Kante has one of the games of his lifetime.
Obviously, that ruined Kante again for the rest of the season, but, you know...
we don't talk about that. But Kante had the game of a lifetime. And I'm not being funny. When you look at the football that he was playing, it was ridiculous compared to the other three. So I'm not being funny. That is my only saviour. If he stayed on for the rest of the season, I genuinely think it would have been a lot better off.
The problem is he didn't want to, what does that tell you?
I'm not going to downgrade him for that. If I was in that shit show, I wouldn't want to stay on either.
No, it's true. No, fair play.
Yeah, fair play. Just based on his performance, bro, that's my only saviour.
You know what, Aaron? I'm going to actually agree. I'm going to put him in only saviour.
I agree too.
Fair enough.
Such a cult hero.
Big old Bruno. Hey, if Poch doesn't work out, bring back Bruno, I say.
Bruno head coach with Graham Potter assistant manager would do bits.
All right, calm down. We don't need.
No. Let's just relax there. But just remember, he was a Spanish washed up right back from the Premier League, and we've got one of them as well. So maybe he might go on to be a top manager.
Bring back Aspie as interim.
Let's not go that far in it. But you know, if we're really desperate, then you might have to.
Yeah, exactly. And Frank Lampard, you make the first position in shocking. The others don't have an order, but you were literally the worst thing that happened to us all season. Well, maybe the ownership was worse.
No. Frank Lampard, you are the worst.
Yeah, he was, wasn't he? It was just like everything he did from top to bottom was just awful. His team selection was awful. His getting the team spirited was awful. The way he tried it was awful. His tactics were awful. The way he portrayed the club to the outside was awful. First, he was giving it all the big one, waffling. As soon as the season started, he's like, oh, the dressing room's quiet. I'm like, bro, bring it up while the season's still going, while there's something to fight for. So they have someone to, like, you know, answer to, and oh yeah, the manager thinks we're all a bit too quiet compared to, you know, maybe we need to don't do it when the season's done, man. Like, what is that? Absolutely shocking. I know he did us a bit of a favor and he didn't have to take over.
Did he really?
In his opinion, from his perspective, would have been better had he not taken over, because now he will never get a job again other than as pundit. And even then, everyone will laugh at him like Gary Neville. But he could not have done a single thing worse. He didn't even play the young players. He didn't even do that. Until Chile and Cucurella were injured, Hull wouldn't have played a minute otherwise. Chukwuemeka wouldn't have played a minute if Kovacic and Kante didn't get injured. Not one of them. He literally could not have done any worse than he did. And it's a shame because we all loved the man. We love him. But he was already not great in his first spell at Chelsea. The first season, good. First half of the second season was also good. We were top of the league in December. And then it all kind of started to fall apart. But what he did now is just like unforgivable. Like his win rate with us, like it's so embarrassing from top to bottom. And you can't tell me he couldn't have done more. You cannot tell me he couldn't have done more and he couldn't have done better. And we didn't train hard enough. Then fucking make them train harder. They aren't fit enough. Then fucking make them fitter. Play the under-21s in every game. We were losing every week anyway. Play the under-21s in the Prem games then and make the first team just train and get them fit. Stop sitting there and using it as an excuse, you little, like, what is that? Absolutely embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. And hopefully we don't have to see that manager Frank Lampard again. Now, if he wants to have some sort of other role in the background, because he's absolutely amazing in terms of player pull, he's absolutely brilliant in my opinion. Generally, his talent ID is very good. And the man can talk and convince you of anything. Like when his first press conference was, I was one of those guys that were a bit hesitant when we even appointed him. But after the first press conference, I was like, all right, let's see what Frank can do. Well, it took a whole one game and I was back to misery. Like that Wolves game. When I saw that, I was like, oh my days, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. I saw it from the Wolves game already. I was like, no, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Like the fact that he had Sterling on the right, Joao Felix on the left, but Cucurella playing left back. Felix was constantly inside. So we just didn't have a left wing. Well, you had Sterling play on the right wing and also constantly coming inside. Just put Sterling on the other side and use the left wing. Like how tactically incapable do you have to be? It's mind-boggling. Like it's just, wow, how can you're Frank Lampard, one of the greatest midfielders in history of football, not just England. How can you not see those things? It's just, I cannot understand. Do not understand how that was ever possible. I let Aaron's run for last. Adash, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, we've ranted about this a lot, so it's just kind of like sad at this point. Shocking for me, just the way everything went down was shocking. I think to me, like the biggest thing was, I mean, like I expected him to not be tactically adept in the way that we kind of might have thought, but the way he just refused to play any of the young players. And he like actively didn't fail to play the young players. It wasn't even like when they had an opportunity, he might have given them a chance, but he actively refused to play them. Just absolutely drove me insane. But you know what? It's the end of the season. Now we can all go back to remembering the player Frank Lampard. We can just forget this horror show of a season, this horror show of a last run with Frank. And I guess that's the only positive to come out of his managerial spell is the fact that it's now over.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I do agree. Aaron, finish it off for us. What do you have to say on Frank?
So I genuinely think he's the worst manager in Premier League history. Frank de Boer didn't even get a win, but when you look at the squads, they both had the job that Frank Lampard did compared to Frank de Boer. Frank Lampard is the worst manager in Premier League history. I think when the season ended, I believe his win rate was worse than Nathan Jones at Southampton, who finished 20th and got relegated.
And that's with two clubs. Both of those clubs stayed up, by the way. And once Chelsea that spent 600 million in one season. And he had a worse win rate than a manager that got relegated.
Frank Lampard also had less wins than Sean Dyche across the whole season. And Sean Dyche only came into Everton later on. What else can I say? You said about Lampard's pulling power. I think after people see the managerial disaster class that he's just had, I think he's going to have fuck all pulling power. I don't think he's going to be able to.
As a manager, I agree. But if you made him something that's not a manager, maybe it would be.
No, I completely disagree. I think even if you put him behind the scenes and that, I don't think he'd have any player power or pulling power after the shit show that he's just run. I genuinely think that this will go down as the most embarrassing season from a top club in Premier League history. I don't think you'll ever see anything as bad as this. I think had we kept with Lampard for any longer in the season, like if he'd come in earlier, I genuinely think we would have been in a relegation fight, and that's not even a joke. I just think he's probably one of the worst things that's ever happened to Chelsea Football Club in terms of management, and I'm so happy to see the back of him. I can't even begin to explain it.
Yeah, there you go. And unfortunately, Thomas, no, they don't. Maybe I should have thought of that, but frankly, they're all going and shocking. But the problem is, it's not just the ownership now; it's also the directors that we hired, who I guess
Paul
ownership
Winstanley
hired them. But sorry,
Paul Winstanley can get in a bin. My lord.
That's what I'm saying. All right, ladies and gentlemen, 2 hours and 30 minutes. My days. An hour ago, I told the boys, yeah, we need to get this done in 30 minutes. Well, we didn't. Sorry, Aaron. He told me he needs to go somewhere at 7:30. So I appreciate you staying until now. I appreciate you as well, Adash, changing this little, I forgot what the thing's called down there, but we're standing out. I don't even disagree. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you're still here, and I know that's not that many of you today, but if you're still here, I appreciate you very much. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that like button for me. That'd be massively appreciated. We will be back either on Monday or on Tuesday. I'm not quite sure if I'll be able to do Monday. Unfortunately, not over the weekend. But we will be back with all your latest Chelsea news and hopefully something with Joe next week, either next weekend or next Friday. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up to Chelsea. Upwards and onwards. On to our next season. Now this season has truly been talked about enough. We will never mention it again. And we'll see you next time.